Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. It's your girl Mocha. I'm here on this rainy Saturday. It's 2 o'clock Central Standard Time, and we're gonna do our live because rain, sleet, or snow, we're gonna get it in. Um, I don't know about anybody else, but it's been an emotional couple of days, a whirlwind. I personally had a whirlwind of emotions, so I can only imagine anybody else. I'm actually trying to send out my alert right now. I was trying to do it earlier, but I was putting my little thinky mama to bed. Because I try to do this right after she goes down for her nap, so I get a little bit of time. What the heck is happening? No. Let's see. So much going on. Okay. So, what I'm hoping to do today is, we seen Kamarius Nichols plea deal. We seen Lil Rod's. We seen Marquavius Huey's. What I would like to do is do a recap of everything surrounding Brian Steele. I found some stuff on Thugger Daily that I'm just gonna kind of read off because I can't figure out how. I lost my password to my Twitter, so I can't figure out how to log into my Twitter on my laptop, so that I can just drag it over. So I'm just gonna pull it up and read it off. We're gonna read Fulton County DA's response to Brian Steele and Keith Adams to see how they was feeling after that interview. So for me, Marquavius Huey's plea deal was still really emotional. It was probably the most emotional one for me thus far, just because, he had his baby that he hadn't got to in person meet. And then he's going straight to prison. Hopefully he'll have the opportunity to lay hands on her, again, like he did in the courtroom. But I'm just rooting for these guys. I'm rooting for Little Rod to get his appeal, maybe get out on time served. I mean, he already got time served with the RICO charge, and get his appeal and be able to get out and do better, learn more. We'll watch the Thug plea deal. We're going to watch it on 1.5 speed. And then I will give my feelings and thoughts on that. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I was listening to this in the car on Thursday as I was driving home. When I tell you I was gripping that steering wheel for dear life, I was like frantic driving home. When Adrian Love started reading off lyrics, and then when she comes out with wanting to seize all of his assets, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I was like, I could not take it. I was so upset. So it was a lot for me. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and go straight into the stream. And then it's a little bit lengthy, so be prepared. We are going to watch it on 1.5 speed. We're going to recap it. I'm going to try not to get emotional when Jeffrey starts talking. And then I'm going to give y'all my thoughts and opinions. Please share yours with me. I see my people is back. Kristen Vasquez, Factual Lie, Miss Mimi. Hello, everyone. I missed you guys all week. Well, it was only been a couple of days, but I was gonna recap this that night, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I was a lot. I was a lot. Y'all probably wouldn't have wanted to hear me that night because I was a lot. I was all over the place, and I don't think I could articulate my thoughts and my emotions into appropriate words that night. It was a lot for me. So I know if it was a lot for me as a spectator, I know it was a lot for Jeffrey. So, and I'm just gonna call him Jeffrey from now on because he's Jeffrey for me. But yeah, let me get this pulled up so we can go over it. Of course, Jeffrey seemed a little bit like back and forth on what to do, but in the end, he took a chance. He took a chance on Judge Winokur, and it paid off. Let's just say that much. He took a chance. So here we go. All right, peeps. Let's watch her. Let's watch it. Let's see what happens.
Ready to go forward? All right. Y'all coming up here to the podium.
Oh, yeah. It's starting.
All right,
My
so
nerves.
you swear in, Mr. Williams.
Raise your right hand. You swear from testimony you take the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Jeffrey Williams, JEFFERY WILLIAMS.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
Are you the same Jeffrey Williams indicted in case number? Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
actually, have we all signed the indictment? Or are we going to do that afterwards? Because I don't have a copy of it.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't believe that we have.
Okay, probably be a good idea to do that.
Does anyone have a copy? 'Cause you don't? Okay.
Where's the one we were using yesterday? We'll do that in just a minute. You can go ahead with the colloquy.
And Your Honor, we don't have the waiver form as well. I believe that the court had one.
I've got blanks. Y'all filled one out, right?
We have.
Okay.
Hey, they weren't ready. They was not ready. They was hoping she was like, no.
Mr. Williams, are you the same Jeffrey Williams indicted in case number 22SC183572?
Yes.
Okay. And are you also known as Young Thug?
Yes.
Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medication?
No.
Is there any medication that you normally take that you have not been given today?
No.
How old are you?
33.
And how far have you gone in school?
9.
Say that one more time.
9.
Okay. Are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes.
All right. Do you understand that you are charged with the following offenses? Conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, participation in criminal street gang activity, the leadership charge, participation in criminal street gang activity, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, 3 counts, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and possession of a machine gun. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
And do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges, and that if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you will continue to receive a jury trial?
sorry.
Yes.
And have you received this waiver of rights form that I hold in my hand from your attorney and reviewed it with your attorney?
Yes.
All right. And is this your signature on the bottom of this form?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorneys, Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, about all of the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charges in indictment 22SC183572, including any potential defenses?
Yes.
Do you need additional time to discuss this case with your attorneys?
No.
Are you satisfied with their services?
Yes.
Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, do you on behalf of Mr. Williams waive a formal reading of this indictment?
Yes, Your Honor. You do.
And do you, Mr. Williams, waive any and all defects in this indictment, including any with respect to your name?
Yes.
Have you been arrested on these charges?
Yes.
The state is unaware of any outstanding warrants related to these charges. Do you or your attorneys know of any outstanding warrants related to these charges?
Anyway.
Outstanding warrants related to any of the charges in the indictment?
No,
No.
I don't believe so either, Your Honor.
Okay. And I'm unaware of any as well, Your Honor.
I am as well.
Thank you. Have your attorneys advised you of the minimum and maximum sentence for each of the crimes that you are charged with?
Yes.
And each of the charges that you are pleading guilty to?
Yes.
Your Honor, with respect to the charges that Mr. Williams faces, count 1 carries a minimum charge of 5 years, and a maximum charge of 20 years in prison, or up to a $25,000 fine, or both.
Isn't it a $15,000 fine? Because wasn't it the version of the statute in effect at the time, or was that the same for RICO? Was RICO 25?
Yes, RICO was
Okay.
25.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Count 56 carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison, a maximum of 20 years in prison, consecutive to any other sentence, with a fine of $10,000 to $15,000, or both.
Okay.
Count 57 carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison and a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Count 58 carries a minimum sentence of 1 and a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Count 59 carries a sentence range of 5 to 30 years in prison. Count 60 carries a sentence
Hang on,
range.
slow down just a second. All right, and that's for the amount of that drug that was found on 59, 5 to 30?
That's as a result of the charge itself, I believe, with intent to distribute.
I think that 59, Your Honor, is
Uh-huh.
simple possession of cocaine. I have to look at the indictment to be
I think
sure.
that's 60.
Okay,
Let me look.
okay.
And Your Honor,
59 is codeine and
Yes,
60 is cocaine.
yes.
So,
Your Honor, it is with the intent to distribute. So my reading of the statute is that it carries the range of 5 to 30.
okay.
And Your Honor, also, as I have the indictment in my hand from Ms. Roster, may I pass it to counsel for Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'll permit time
Go
for
ahead.
them to. Okay. Count 60 carries a range of 1 to 5 years in prison. Count 61 carries a mandatory 5 years consecutive to the underlying felony. Count 62 carries a sentence of 10 years consecutive, for a total maximum exposure of 120 years in prison. Were you aware of that, Mr. Williams?
Yes,
Do you understand that neither the court nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole or the Department of Corrections or the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that if you are sentenced to confinement in the Georgia Department of Corrections, no one can guarantee parole?
You can say yes.
well,
She asked you, do you say that?
Oh, yes,
guarantee
ma'am.
parole?
Your Honor, may I allow Mr. Williams time to finish signing the indictment?
Okay, then.
Your Honor, with permission, may I approach with a member of Mr. Williams' team?
You may.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, do you understand that this is a non-negotiated plea of guilty, and that since your guilty plea is a blind plea or a non-negotiated plea, the state is making a recommendation of sentencing to the court, notwithstanding the fact that this is a blind plea? You understand that, Mr. Williams? Okay. And Mr. Williams, were you aware of the state's previous offer that was turned down prior to your making this non-negotiated plea?
yes,
All right. And Your Honor, at this time, the state is making a recommendation of 45 years with 25 to serve in custody, followed by 20 on probation, subject to the special requirements of 1615 for the gang statute.
All right, and do you want to break down for me what your recommended sentence on each count is?
Yes, Your Honor. The state is recommending on count 1, 5 years to serve. Count 56, 20 years to serve consecutively to count 1. Count 57, 5 years of probation to serve consecutively to count 56. Count 58, 10 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57. Count 59, 5 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57 and 58. Count 60, 5 years of probation concurrent with count 57, 58, and 59. Count 61, 5 years of probation consecutive to count 57. And count 62, 10 years of probation consecutive to count 61.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Williams, did you discuss the state's previous offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
All right, and so we're all clear that we're talking about the same thing. Can you put what the state's previous offer was on the record for me, please?
I can, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The state's previous offer was a total of 43 years with 20 years, 5 years to serve on count 56, commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation. On count 58, the sentence was 10 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to count 56. Count 59 was 3 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56 and 58. Count 60 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, and 59. Count 61 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, 59, and 60.
Was that the entirety of what the sentence was?
No, Your Honor,
I mean, I know
still
there was
reading.
special conditions, so y'all were
There
going
are.
null pros, what,
Yeah,
1
yeah.
and 62?
Yes, as part
Okay.
of the recommended sentence, in exchange for the defendant agreeing to the special conditions that we asked the court to impose, the state was willing to null pros count 1, count 57, and count 62.
Okay, and then all of that consecutive to the probation, that was going to be what we call backloaded, and what were y'all proposing with regard to that, since it was
The
going to
total-
follow the probated sentence?
The total sentence was 43 years to serve, with the first 5 years in prison commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed by 23 years in prison, which would have been served in confinement, except that if defendant had complied with the special conditions of probation imposed as part of this sentence, the backloaded portion of defendant's sentence would have been commuted. However, should defendant had violated any special condition of probation within the first 15 years of his sentence, his probated sentence would have immediately been revoked, and he would have been required to serve the entire remainder of his sentence confined to the Georgia Department of Corrections.
All right, so as long as he had successfully completed his 15 years of probation, the 23 years that was going to follow it was going to be commuted to time served, as long as his probation was successful, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor,
Okay.
and the special, would the court like for us to?
No, I was really more interested in the length of sentence and what y'all had. I mean, I know you didn't reach agreement, but y'all, that's what the last offer had been, with, of course, a bunch of special conditions, which I guess is where the hang up is. I don't know.
Right, defendant did not want to agree to the
Okay.
special conditions.
All right, is that basically your understanding too? Mr.
Yes, Your Honor.
Steele
It
and
would have
Mr.
been,
Adams?
yes, Your Honor, Mr. Williams would have been released today for 15 years on probation if he successfully completes that probation. Then he would not have to go to custody. If he did not, he'd face probation revocation, as well as 23 years, as a court said, backloaded in the Georgia prison system. But we
Okay.
could not come to terms on all the conditions that the district attorney was insisting.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Love.
And Mr. Williams, were you aware of that previous offer as well as all of the requirements that that offer would have entailed?
Yes.
And had you had enough time to discuss that particular offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
All right,
The previous?
the previous offer. Do you understand that the court can impose any sentence authorized by law, including a higher sentence than that recommended by the state, up to the maximum sentence on each charge in this indictment? Do you understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you enter into a non-negotiated plea, you do not have a right to withdraw your plea once the sentence has been announced?
Yes.
Do you understand that this is a guilty plea which is permanently recorded on your criminal history?
Yes.
Do you understand that this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction, as well as in other jurisdictions, including in the federal courts?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on your entering a guilty plea today?
I'm not on probation.
Okay, so you're
Yeah,
not on
if you
probation.
were on probation,
Yes, yes.
but if you're not, then it doesn't matter.
Okay. Do you understand that if you are placed on probation of any kind by this court, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probations without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence the court imposes?
Yes, I know.
Do you understand that you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm while on probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just like a conviction at a trial would, and that this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else?
Yes.
Do you understand that neither the court, your attorney, nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole, and the Department of Corrections or Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that no one can guarantee parole no matter what anyone has told you?
Yes.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction, just as there would be from a conviction following a trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect the right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or if you use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of up to 1 to 15 years in prison?
Yes.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you would have the right to, that if you continued at trial, rather, you would continue to have the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to testify or to remain silent and not incriminate yourself? Do you understand all of those things?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the following rights? The right to a trial by jury. Do you understand that?
Yes.
The right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself.
Yes.
The right to confront witnesses against you.
Yes.
The right to continued assistance of counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at the continued trial of your case.
Yes.
The right to the presumption of innocence.
Yes.
The right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence.
Yes.
The right to subpoena witnesses and compel the production of evidence.
Yes.
The right to have the charges against you proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
The right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial. Do you understand?
Yes.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea?
No.
Is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Yes.
Well, Your Honor, may I interject?
You may.
Your Honor, on count 1, which is the racketeering conspiracy count, Mr. Williams is tendering a plea under nolo contendere. As to count 56, which is participation in criminal street gang activity as being a leader or a supervisor or organizer, Mr. Williams is also tendering a plea to this honorable court under nolo contendere. The balance of the counts, so he is tendering a guilty plea.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
would this court like to hear from the state or not?
About the NOLO issues?
Yes.
Sure.
Your Honor, the state asked that the court not accept a nolo plea and require either a guilty plea or a not guilty plea as to these charges.
All right. I'm going to permit a NOLO plea as to counts 1 and 56.
All right. Mr. Williams, as to count 57, participation in criminal street gang activity, how do you plead?
I plead guilty.
As to count 58, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 59, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 60, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 61, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, how do you plead?
Guilty.
And as to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, how do you plead?
Nolo.
As to count 56, participation in criminal street gang activity under the leadership charge, how do you plead?
Nolo.
I think you didn't ask about count 62.
As to count, thank you, Your Honor. As to count 62, possession of a machine gun, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Agreed, ma'am.
Are you pleading guilty to the offenses you have indicated because you are in fact guilty of these charges?
Yes.
Please, and your NOLO please, freely and voluntarily given with the full knowledge of the charges against you.
Yes.
You are guilty.
Do you understand that you may have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Do you
Boy,
understand that you have only
Yes.
4 years from today's date for a felony charge and 12 months from today's date you don't have a misdemeanor charge? But to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness and constitutionality of this guilty plea.
Yes.
Your Honor, also, do you,
You have 30 days from
I was-
today to file a direct appeal from this guilty plea and until the end of this term of court to file a motion seeking to withdraw the guilty plea, which does not mean it would be granted, but that's the time period, okay?
What's a direct appeal?
Well, you can talk to your attorneys more about it, but it would be up to one of the,
Well,
like the
hold on,
Court of Appeals, I think is where this one would go. Those are just the time periods.
and Your Honor, the state, in addition to the sentence we are asking that the court to impose,
Okay.
we would also be asking the court to require or to forfeit, have defendant forfeit all the property that has been seized and that is currently being held, that was found or recovered or taken from his home after it was searched on May 9th,
Do you have any kind of list of what that property is? I mean, I'm not familiar with what was seized.
And Your Honor, we're not agreeing.
Oh, I mean, I assume y'all aren't agreeing to anything.
We're not
You
agreeing
would
to that.
present it as a negotiated plea.
We're not, but we do have a list of the
All right.
property
Do you have it
items.
where available right now?
Yes, actually, would the court permit us to send it electronically?
Sure,
Because
that's fine. And then if that is not imposed as a condition, is it just get litigated as like any forfeiture matter?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it would be litigated
it's a-
later on,
It's a
yes.
civil separate filing
Okay.
in this court. It's not related to the
All
court.
right.
It's related case, but it's unrelated.
Understood.
And we are sending that to Your
All right.
Honor
Thank you.
at this time. And as it relates to the,
I'm sorry, y'all. I gotta pause. I gotta pause right there because that makes me so mad. And it literally like coincides with what we have been saying, most people have been saying almost this entire trial about it being about money. As a little side note, Your Honor, we do ask that, everything that we seized, his house, everything that was in his house, jewelry, electronics, money, all of that. We're asking you, please don't make us give any of that back. We're going to hang on to it. You hear the stories about people getting picked up and taken into custody with a wallet full of money or money in their middle console and then, getting, nothing back. It just disappeared, They're basically asking that same thing. Let us not, give anything back. We don't want to. Those things that he worked hard for, we don't feel like he's deserving of those. How would you feel if somebody came in your house, took all your stuff, took all your picnic table jackets and your skinny stiletto heels that you struggling to walk in and said you can't have none of those back? How would you feel if we went and took all your tote bags? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know they seize more than just, literally the property and laptops, computers, phones, tablets. We want to keep all these things, because essentially our county is broke as hell trying to try this case. And we need all those money so we can recoup or so that we can further dig into his life. He literally has to turn over everything to you anyways. Some of it wasn't owned by thugs. Some of it was rented. But basically, they're like, well, he going to have to, the cars that they seized, all of that, like, he's going to have to still pay that. Kind of like the repo man. You know what I'm saying? That's essentially what they're doing is they're repossessing it. They're telling him, you have to keep paying the dealership. You got to keep paying the mortgage, but it's going to belong to us. We're not going to watch all of Love Talk because it's going to send me out this world again. So I'm going to fast forward through some of it since we already know what the charges are realistically. And we're going to kind of go into a little bit of Brian's, but he's long-winded too. But we're going to go into a little bit of his, and because the judge essentially shuts him up. But we're going to go into a little bit of his. I'm going to stop it at a certain point, and then we're going to just listen to Jeffrey. And then we're going to discuss, and then after that, we'll watch their their press conference afterwards. I mean, all the free concerts that he did, breast cancer awareness concerts. Yeah, we're not saying that he's an angel. He's not. Clearly, he's a human being. But if we can forgive Woody and move past it, you know what I'm saying? Come on. Come on. And now this man has to be on parole for 15 years of his life. He has to report for 17 of those, or 7 of those, 7.5 of those, before they'll let him go to a non-reporting status. And that's basically, they call you to come in whenever, and, you may give a sample or, whatever. You're pretty much cool as long as you don't get in no trouble. Oh, you want to listen to Love say his lyrics? Okay, I will fast forward. I'll get to that part. Yes, but I don't know her voice, Kristen, I swear to God, it just, she sends me. But whatever. This is you guys' live. So yes, if y'all want to watch it, we'll watch it. Let's do it. It's an hour, but
conditions of a conviction under 1615.4, Your Honor, we would ask, or as part of the sentence, defendant would be required to adhere to the requirements, the sentencing requirements of the gang statute, which at least in part require that he not
Oh,
associate
you don't
with
want
any
to? You don't want to
gang
watch
members
her?
whatsoever. And I can read the rest of that into the record if the court requires, or I can continue with the factual basis.
All right, and let me ask you, because I know that at least while y'all were
I wanna
negotiating,
catch
one of the
part where she's
things
trying to be slick.
that I guess was being negotiated was some exception
that's
for,
here.
I think, somebody that is contractually obligated on his record label. Is that something that the state would still be in agreement to?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
go ahead.
factual,
All right.
sure.
Your Honor, as part of the requirements of 1615-4,
Yes.
defendant would, one moment, Your Honor. Under 1615-4, in addition to any other penalty provided by the code section, all sentences imposed under the code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly
Wait,
have.
just a tad, because there's a court reporter taking it down. When we start reading, we read really fast. So go ahead.
This code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of a criminal street gang, shall not participate in any criminal gang activity, and in cases involving a victim, shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any such victim or any member of any such victim's family or household. So that is, and we've listed in our indictment the victims of the crimes, the overt acts that have been committed, and under the basic conspiracy law, those are the victims that we are naming. Your Honor, as this case has been tried and would continue to be tried until the state completed its case in chief, the evidence has shown that the defendant, throughout the time between 2013 to 2022, conspired with both indicted and unindicted co-conspirators to participate in the enterprise known as Young Slime Life, or YSL, through a pattern of racketeering activity. Throughout that time, multiple conspirators, both indicted and unindicted, and including the defendant, have committed overt acts intended.
I'm sorry.
Had come out at that time with a mixtape that carried the name of an album that Mr. Carter was set to promo, but I never fucking giggle. YSL won't fold. Pick his ass off from the balcony, wipe his nose.
Look, Brian Steele and Doug
As
are like,
Mr. Williams'
oh
prominence
my
in the
God.
music industry rose,
Brian Steele's
his
like,
ascension within or in leadership in the gang YSL became more apparent as he rapped and talked about the crimes that YSL co-conspirators and members committed and how he got away with robberies.
Yeah, I'm gonna come up with a mixtape.
With respect to the Donovan Thomas murder,
but I'm gonna come up with.
The court has heard evidence through phone records that within 6 minutes of the shooting of Donovan Thomas Jr., a phone call was made from Demise McMullen's cell phone to defendant Williams' phone. And then immediately after that call, Mr. Williams calls his sister Dora Greer and then calls Kelvin Treadwell. There's been a series of calls between Dora Greer and Treadwell, and then Treadwell calls Demise McMullen or Nard. All of those calls happen within 15 minutes of the 911 call. And as I have stated before, the court has heard accomplice prior inconsistent statements about who committed the murder itself and what happened afterwards.
The approval of Donovan Thomas's mom to come in, which just hurt my feelings.
The conflict between YSL and members of If Gang continued into 2019, wherein Mr. Williams raps the lyrics that I referred to earlier. In May 2019, a YSL member shot multiple times at a vehicle owned by Rayshawn Bennett, a black and red Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. At the time was being driven by a Milton Howard Jr. It was after that incident, later in August 2019, that defendant Williams posted on his page the language YFN, if I ain't like what you do for your mother and kids, I would have been killed you. The post was then deleted away. And appreciate you for everything, my brother. Never about money. Compensation for the stabbing. Mr. Adams reached out to Mr. Garlington about the payment for the completion. And YFN territory occurred, and a YFN member was shot. Mr. Nichols, Mr. Garlington, and Mr. Farley and cocaine, and inside the home were also other guns besides the guns with the switch. The items were seized, and again, Mr. Williams was subsequently arrested, along with other YSL members at Mr. Williams' home. Your Honor, that is the evidence that I believe has been shown throughout the course of this trial and that the state would continue to show. There are several messages between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams inside the cell phone that one of the cell phones that were recovered from Mr. Huey, besides the messages about tells Mr. Williams he has a new number. Mr. Huey asked Mr. Williams, hey, my brother here. Mr. Williams responded, slat. Mr. Huey sent him, have asked earlier, and prior to the court imposing a sentence, we would ask that Ms. Shawana Edmonds, who is the mother of Mr. Thomas, be allowed an opportunity to make an impact statement. And that is all that we have, unless the court has questions.
Okay, well, given that Mr. Williams is not charged with the murder of Mr. Thomas, I don't think that that is applicable here.
I checked on that, Your Honor, with respect to count one. As a co-conspirator, Mr. Williams is responsible for all of the acts of the other co-conspirators, the overt acts. The overt act of the murder of Donovan Thomas is one of those acts.
I know, and this trial is not complete, and so y'all have not yet proven that. Not to mention that you dismissed the murder charge against one of the co-defendants who already pled. So,
Not for that case, Your Honor. That was that was Mr. Drinks.
okay.
We have not dismissed any.
All right. Well, if there's a conviction on the RICO or murder count following the close of this trial, that would be the appropriate time for the victim impact statement to be made. All right, Mr. Steele or Mr. Adams.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it right there because that's what I was waiting on. That was so disrespectful. I understand that you want to put the blame of his unaliving on Thug. I understand that. I get it from the legal perspective. However, not only was you not even negotiating that in your portion of the plea that you were trying to do, but you didn't even charge him with that. But you literally tried to sneak that stuff in. I mean, try to be YouTube appropriate, but it ain't gonna last long. You try to sneak that mess in there like, well, she didn't stand up and speak on nobody else, but before you sentence him, before you decide for him, we feel like his mom should be able to stand up and say what she feels. That is not okay. He's not even charged with that. And I am so glad the judge was like, nope, not gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like that. And could you imagine being his mother? Like, y'all, and I'm sure based on how Shamal Drinks' aunt was saying the state was doing her, I am sure they called and said, hey, we need you to come and give your victim impact statement to this judge because Jeffrey Williams is about to plea out and we need the judge to hear your side of things. That had to hurt. And this is just being a normal freaking human being. We're not just supportive of Jeffrey. We are supportive of what is right. You know, we're saying he said, I take ownership for what I did. The drugs that were found in my house when the other 12 people were found, the guns that were found in my house when the other 12 people, including myself, were found. Okay, that's my home. I allow these people into my home. I'm going to take responsibility for that. The text messages that I sent, whatever the postings that I made, yep, I'm going to take responsibility for that. You haven't even proved he was responsible for that. You don't know who did that. And then I got something to say about how they try to do Yak and SB at the end too, because that's itty. Real freaking shitty. But we'll go on. We will go on.
Adams, does the defense want to put anything on the record? Obviously, you need to make a recommendation.
Yes, Your
still
Honor.
gonna do it.
Many of the statements made by the prosecutor, we vehemently disagree with. The prosecutor misstated many pieces of evidence and then took liberty that is the state's theory. Mr. Williams has tendered a no look contendere plea.
Shamel Drink's aunt said that she did not believe that the police department thoroughly investigated her nephew's unaliving. She said that the people that they had into custody for that particular unaliving, she didn't believe it was all of those individuals. Now, she did indicate that there was somebody that had a problem with him and they didn't individually investigate that person. I went back and watched that live like 3 times. She never names who she thinks that person is. But what she said is she doesn't feel like the Fulton County Police Department actually investigated that crime. She feel like they just basically locked somebody up for it and tied it all into this RICO, like, hey, we're going to get somebody for it. And that's essentially what they're trying to do with Yak and SB. Like, well, all these crimes are named as an overt act, so it is what it is. Somebody going to have to take the rep for it. And that's how they're kind of like trying to throw it in there. Nobody actually admits that, Jeffrey did anybody's unaliving. They claim that they had him getting out of a car that they never showed that he got out of or that his phone was anywhere near. They supposedly got an order to get a wiretap, but they never went through with the dadgum wiretap. Legit, you know. The main detective or investigator that's proven the case was 3 people's in this courtroom's probation officer. She was trying to make a name for herself. You know what I'm saying? She was trying to make a name for herself. But back to Steele.
To the RICO conspiracy count. And in that count, there are several overt acts. And the first one, Your Honor, deals with a traffic stop. It's on September 9th of 2013. And I won't go through every one because it might take a long time, but just for completeness for this, as court knows, Mr. Williams is driving a car. There is a dash cam video of the stop. The officer who testified at the trial 11 years later, the case was a gun was found under the passenger seat. Mr. Williams is not tied to the gun. He's not convicted of that. And the dash cam video that the officer said would have picked up sound as well as definitely video was never turned over to us, supposedly lost. Could not explain the loss. The armed robbery in another overt act of Mr. Dodson, D-O-D-S-O-N, has the following information. The state only, because we haven't called witnesses yet. So the state put up a man who said nothing except, I don't recall. And then they put in his prior recorded jail calls. That man was taken, his name is Mr. Bean, B-E-A-N. He was taken to Grady Hospital, and he was spoken with by a detective. The state vehemently accused me of lying to the jury, that the man never went, Mr. Bean was never taken to Grady Hospital, and that somehow I planted on him to say something on a recording where he said, the reason I implicated Jeffrey Williams is because the police told me that it would be easier for me. Then I had to go through the CAD reports and show that Mr. Bean was in fact taken to Grady Hospital, and Mr. Bean on recording told Detective Quinn, who of course told the truth. Yes, when I spoke to the detective previously, I did lie. Then what the state doesn't tell the jury is that there's another man in the car. He is shot at the scene. He's arrested. He pled guilty. His name is Fred Prethrow, P-R-E-T-H-O. And Mr. Prethrow is in the Georgia State Prison System, easy to find. Mr. Prethrow was in Grady Hospital also, unfortunately suffering from a gunshot wound. And you can hear the medical equipment behind him. And Detective Williams came in and was recording the whole conversation and said how many people were in the car. And Mr. Prethrow names the people. Adrian Bean, who's the gentleman I just said, himself, and Walter Murphy. Are you sure they weren't a 4th person in the car? No, the 3 of us. The state doesn't call that person. The state does call Detective Williams. So I wanted to ask and inquire on that. The state, to obstruct, if that's obstruction, asked the predecessor court to prohibit me from getting into the fact of any conversation that would have impeached another witness. It's fine. Fred Prethrow is on my witness list as well as the detective, and I have the recordings. In addition to that, Walter Murphy gave a statement while in the hospital, and his statement is very interesting. It's 2 different police reports, signed the same date, which is September 11th of 2013, and on the first 7 lines of the police report, they're identical. Then all of a sudden, when it gets to on the right-hand police report, it says Mr. Murphy stated that there were 3 people, I believe, I have to go back, in the vehicle. On the other police report, it states Mr. Murphy stated there were 4 people. There's no reason that they should be different.
Yeah,
they're both signed the same. The state doesn't call that officer at all. I tried to ask Mr. Murphy about it. The state objects, and the predecessor judge sustained the objection. Mr. Williams was not involved in the Mr. Dodson. Miss Bennett, that was Mother's Day, May 12, 2013. She reports allegedly an armed robbery. The detective who testified here and investigated stated he never took out arrest warrants from Mr. Williams. And he wrote in his police report, Miss Bennett is not truthful. That is the case that the state is talking about. The state, then, there was Brady evidence that they don't turn over, and we find out about it in court after they arrest Miss Bennett because they say she's not cooperating, and it comes out that she told the prosecution over and over again that this did not happen the way that she reported it, and she doesn't remember. As to Donovan Thomas, and Mr. Williams has nothing but empathy, sympathy, and sorrow. They were friends. It is a lie. What the prosecution has put before this jury is a lie. What happened here is the prosecution comes up with a theory because they need a motive, they think. I know you don't need a motive in reality to prove a murder case or any other case, but they wanted a motive. So they made it where Mr. Williams and a gentleman named Rich Homie Kwan, his name is Mr. Lamar, he's a performer, and Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were close. There are public documents, recordings, Mr. Lamar being interviewed almost every year, and then he talks about his time with this band or group called Rich Gang. And he says every year up to this past year, he, God forbid, died. We can't call him as a witness, how close he is to Mr. Williams. The state, though, made it in this case, or tried to make it, that Mr. Williams and Mr. Rich Homie Kwan are enemies because Rich Homie Kwan will not sign with a record label that has nothing to do with Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams doesn't sign that record label. That record label is owned by a gentleman named Brian Williams, also goes by Birdman, wildly successful. He started Drake's career. He started Mr. Dwayne Carter, performer known as Lil Wayne's career. He started Nicki Minaj's career, just fabulous, powerful person, well-respected in the in the industry. But the state wants it to be that Donovan Thomas interceded and would not let Rich Homie-Quan sign to Mr. Brian Birdman Williams. And that is the reason that Jeffrey Williams had a feud and killed Donovan Thomas. Your Honor, what the evidence would really show if we kept going to trial, and I could tell you that Mr. Adams and I never thought we'd be in front of this honorable court. We always thought it would go all the way through trial. Was the state is saying that Rich Homie-Quan and Jeffrey Williams don't speak since the fall, and they have a bad relationship, the fall of 2014. We would have shown,
Brian
and we served on the
sounds very
state, December
angry
15,
because
2014.
of this. Very angry.
Jeffrey Williams in a private plane with Mr. Lamar, Rich Homie-Quan, and they are high-fiving and laughing with each other. That is
You
on
wanted
audio
nothing
video.
more.
There's a man who the state hasn't called yet, Mr. Martinez Arnold, also known as Duke. It's on the state's witness list. He's represented by
wanted
the
to be
Honorable
able to
Ashley
go,
Merchant. He's on
to the
that
state.
plane as well. He would have identified
I
the
did too.
item, and he would have testified that Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were very close in December 2014. Then on December 29th of 2014, Mr. Williams, Mr. Rich Homie-Quan, Mr. Arnold, others were at Brian Williams' home in Miami, Florida. There was a posting by
Thank
Mr. Lamar, Rich Homie-Quan,
My
and a
baby
picture
girls.
of Mr. Arnold and Mr. Lamar, and they said, Mr. Lamar says, "This is my number one man, Duke," or something to that effect. We would have put that into evidence. In addition to that, Your Honor, on December 8th, 2 days before Mr. Thomas, God forbid, was killed, Mr. Williams is with Mr. Thomas, as well as Mr. Sledge and Brian Williams in Brian Williams' tour bus outside of a fabulous entertainer, artist, Mr. Clifford Harris, T.I.'s studio. And at that time, they were very close. But you also have the detective with the gang unit, Detective Underwood. I asked her within the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, did you do any, and she was on the gang unit the entire time, including today. And I asked her, do you have any evidence about Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas being close friends? And she said, yes, of course I knew that. I said, how about in January of 2015, close to the time of Mr. Thomas's death? She said, yes, they were close friends. Mr. Michael Sprinkle, he's a deputy district attorney in the Fulton County DA's office. He has a recording with Mr. Treadwell. You've heard the name O.G. Bentley. And in that, they're going through the evidence. And Mr. Treadwell is important because he has a child, too, actually, with Mr. Thomas's sister. So he's family. And Mr. Sprinkle states this is 2018. This is after the rental car. This is after all of the interviews of Mr. Copeland. This is after the interviews of Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle's in some of those interviews with Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle on tape, on recording, states, I do not know why anybody thinks Jeffrey Williams is involved in this killing. He and Donovan Thomas were close friends. It makes no sense to anyone. And Mr. Williams was never arrested, never charged, even in this, as the court just noted, with anything to do with Donovan Thomas's, God forbid, killing. In addition to that, Donovan Thomas has a place that he used to stay with a group of people on Auburn Avenue. Jeffrey Williams performed and did a music shoot there to try to help other people who are suffering in poverty to get out and to be able to be seen and to broadcast their music. Jeffrey Williams does that for everybody because he comes, Your Honor, from the struggle of total poverty, seeing people killed. He saw his brother die right in front of him, and the law enforcement, I'm not blaming anybody, everybody's on edge. The law enforcement would not get any help for him because there are all these people around. It is just, what Mr. Williams has gone through is wrong for everyone. It's not just Mr. Williams, it's that whole community, but he's trying to get people out of poverty and out of that community. I have been with Mr. Williams, where we have gone to speak with children together, and he tells them, don't be a rapper. Be like Brian, be a lawyer, keep in school. He tells his children, get your education. His family, his whole being, Your Honor, is trying to break the chains of poverty for others, and it has been spun in this courtroom with false statements and allegations against Mr. Williams at every turn.
Okay, I'm gonna.
He has been involved in a lot, but he has raised himself up.
Okay, so I'm about to fast forward to when Thug gets ready to start speaking, just because, I mean, the more Brian still talks, I'm not kidding you, his voice gets more and more shaky. He gets more and more frustrated and aggravated. You can tell like he really did want to go ahead and take this thing to the finish line. That's where like I kind of start getting emotional because he's like just recounting to Judge Whitaker all of the things that they've been through up until even she took over the bench. And it's another 40 minutes. I'm not kidding you. We were at like 140 something. He goes to about 222 of just going off. So I'm going to go right here to where like right after Brian or Keith Adams goes, right before Jeffrey Williams does, because Brian's still like, you can tell he's a good attorney, but not only that, you can tell he truly cares about Jeffrey Williams. He really does, as an individual, not just as his lawyer, but as a person. Like he, you know, the way that they used to interact in that courtroom, they would come in and like you could see that like when thugs see him, the smile just comes over his face because he knew this person had his back. You know, he was willing to go to jail for him. Judge, can I be in the cell next to, you know, my client so we can go over his case every weekend because we work. I'm not just sitting back. I'm not just getting a check. You know what I'm saying? Like, I work. We are a team. And that was amazing to see. You know, Shart is the same way with his client. Doug is the same way with his client, which is why they're all fighting so hard. Miss D. Williams and Mr. Body was the same way with Little Rod. Like, these lawyers were lawyering. You know what I'm saying? Not like Woody's lawyer or Moontoon's lawyer. They was going over it, like right then. The Matthews got that the paper from the DA right then. They said, Judge, we need a minute. We're gonna go over this line by line real quick and make sure it look like what it's supposed to look like. We're not playing these games. And even here, you can see the state still trying to sneak it in. They still trying to sneak it in. So we're gonna finish up with Keith Adams and then go into Thug. Guys, I really will try my hardest not to cry, but I can't guarantee nothing.
Up. He has done the best he could and has done phenomenally well, and is, I think, an inspiration to a lot of people
The state won't
from
let
that
it go.
community who look to him and see the success that he has gained and have been fully supportive of him. But he finds himself here. He's in front of you. He is tendering this plea because he accepts responsibility. You've heard everything Mr. Steele has to say. I can only ask that you follow what we have put before you. You also have, I believe, the paperwork that was given to you by the state, which kind of gives you some idea of what they were looking for as well in terms of conditions on Mr. Williams, if we were to have reached some sort of agreement. And we ask that if you feel that there's anything within the state's proposal that might be appropriate in terms of the sentence for Mr. Williams, that the court please feel free to do that. There's nothing that he puts himself before the court. And I think 2.5 years sitting, going through this process, challenging the process, but now standing before you and asking that you consider everything and sentence him appropriately in the way that we've requested. I simply ask you, I join Mr. Steele and Mr. Williams in asking you to do the same. And I thank you as well, as Mr. Steele did, for your patience with us and for bringing some order to the proceedings that candidly was needed. So that's all I have to say. I thank you again, and I ask you to consider everything that's been put before you.
All right, Mr. Williams, is there anything that you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility for, my crimes or my charges. I want to say sorry to my family, my mom. My mom got 11 kids. I can't say all the names, my managers, my kids that's not here. Really everybody that got something to do with this situation, I want to say sorry for just having so much time investing into this, and I am a smart guy, I am a good guy, and I really got a good heart, I find myself in a lot of stuff because I was just nice or cool, and I understand that you can't be that way when you reach a certain height because it could end bad. And it don't really have to have anything to do with you, but it could end bad and it could, fall on you. And I know the choice is yours, it's up to you. And I hope that you allow me to go home today and just trust in me to just do the right thing and never see you again unless it's at a bar, bar in the future or something. Just out of this type of situation, I promise you I won't ever be in this type of situation again. I'm going away. I've learned from my mistakes. I come from nothing and I made something and I didn't take full advantage of it. I'm sorry. Through these last 2.5 years of my life, you are really, truly, honestly, the best thing that has happened to me because you made everything fair for me and everybody involved on both sides. I'm sorry to the sheriff, everybody for just having to put extra time in. I know y'all got to pay more money, but I'm sorry for y'all having to put this extra time in to be away from y'all family, and I just hope that you find it in your heart to allow me to go home and be with my family and just do better as a person. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I am. I know the heights I've reached. I know the impact I got on people, period, in the community.
He really did.
All people. I learned that late, these past 2 or 3 years of my life. I kind of learned that late, and maybe it was because I was, probably on drugs or anything. I don't know, but I have came to my senses. I understand what I mean to this world. But I am a good guy. I don't mind doing stuff like free shows, and I always did that. I did free shows and gave it to single parents, millions of dollars. I made $1.8 million on a free show, and I gave it out to a single parent charity. And I did 2 or 3 shows that made $700,000 a piece, and I gave it to the breast cancer organization. I do things. I put millions of dollars back into my community for real. I really did. I did more than anybody ever did from my side.
He was nervous.
But I understand.
He was scared.
Rap lyrics. I understand how it could be twisted. I understand what it could do to the mind of people. I understand all that, and I promise you, I'm 100% changing that. It's just I'm older. I'm grown now. And it's just I'm smarter. There's more things to rap about. I've experienced a lot of good things. I experienced more bad things, but I experienced a lot of good things too. And anyway, I can go forever.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you do realize how much of an impact you have on people. I mean, it's past your neighborhood. It's worldwide, especially young people. And having come up from where you came up from and living in and around that, you know that gangs are damaging to our community. And it may be that a whole lot of rap music and the rap industry is, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a modern day version of kind of WWE wrestling that used to be on television, where people would just get up and posture and act like they hated each other. And it may be that that's a lot of what is going on in the music industry with rap. But whether it is fake or not, it has tremendous impact on kids and young people who think, this is cool. This is what I want to do. Look at him. He's a millionaire.
Right.
I can do that by being, you know, a gangster in the streets. And that's not true. What you're likely to have happen to you if you're a gangster in the streets is you get shot, you get killed,
Yeah.
or you get thrown in prison. And those
Right
are,
here,
you know,
they've been talking to
by
each
far
other.
the most likely
Not
outcomes.
talking to
And,
They're talking
you know,
to each other.
you've been in here watching the trial, and you've seen the pictures of Mr. Ryan posing with a gun as big as he is at 15 years old and going out and shooting and killing another teenager. And that's what gangs do. And that's unfortunately a lot of what rap music does. And if you are a modern day John Lennon, you know, I mean, he might have rapped too in this day and age. I don't know. But I know you're talented. And even if you choose to continue to rap, you need to try to use your influence to let kids know that that is not the way to go, and that there are ways out of poverty besides hooking up with the powerful guy at the end of the street selling drugs. And, you know, I know that happens for protection sometimes, but a much better way would be getting an education and setting, you know, hanging around with people who set a good example. And you be one of those people that sets a good example.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
all right, so that's my high horse on that. I could also go on, but I want you to try to be more of the solution and less of the problem. All right. All right. So it is not
I started getting like,
lost on
yes,
the court
it's going to happen.
that
It's going to happen.
the
Right
state,
here.
had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count, was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, you know, machine gun count. Was willing to
Yeah.
give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today, and therefore does not seem
Yeah.
to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm
Mhm.
taking that into consideration and crafting my
Absolutely.
sentence.
They did not.
And in permitting a nolo plea to the RICO count in one of the two gang counts, I would not be permitting the nolo to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least one of them. But you are, and y'all admit a factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts
Strap her
with
in.
which you are charged. I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution. On count one, the court sentence is 20 years to serve 5 years, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years to be probated, and a $25,000 fine. On count two, the sentence is 5 years to serve, commuted to time served. That's the minimum sentence that's permitted on that count. It is required to be run consecutively. I'm going to run it consecutive to count one, but I'm going to backload. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not commuted. That is 5 years to serve, and it's going to be run consecutively to count one, backloaded, by which I mean after you serve your 15 years of probation. If you have been successful on that probation, and I sincerely hope that you are, then at the end of that 15 years, I will commute the entire rest of any service portion of your sentence to time served. So I'll get to the end of it and give you the total sentence, but I'm also going to impose a $15,000 fine with regard to that count. Count 57, 20 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years probated, concurrent with count 1. Count 58, 10 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, balance probated, concurrent with count 1. 59, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. 60, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years to serve, that is required to be also a consecutive sentence, so that's going to be run consecutively to count 56 and backloaded. Count 62, 10 years to serve, also required to be served consecutively, that's going to be consecutive to count 61, also backloaded. So essentially, the total sentence is 40 years to serve the first 5 years in prison, but commuted to the time that you have already served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed then by the backloaded 20 years, which can be served in custody and will be served in custody if you are not successful on your probation. If you are successful in completing your 15 years probation, that will be commuted to time served. You are to remain on reporting status for the first half of your probation, active reporting for the first 7.5 years of your probation, and that is pursuant to OCGA 17-10-1, subsection 2, A2A. And Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, in order to keep him on reporting status, there needs to be a good cause shown. We all can see that good cause is shown here.
Stipulate.
All right, I appreciate that. Special conditions of your probation.
What the cost? What do you mean?
Can I have a second, Your Honor?
Sure.
Let the judge. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. You had enough time to talk with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay. All right, special conditions of your probation. After 48 hours from your release, you are to stay away from the metro Atlanta area, and that's defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. It may change, but you can look that up anytime to figure out what that is. For the first 10 years of your probation, subject to the following exceptions, you are permitted to be in the metro Atlanta area to attend any wedding, funeral, or graduation from high school, college, or graduate school of any of your immediate family members. And immediate family members is defined the same way that you all were contemplating it when you were negotiating. You can get here up to 24 hours prior to any such event, and you need to leave within 48 hours after any such event. In addition, during each year of your probation, I'm going to require that you come to the metro Atlanta area and make a live anti-gang and anti-gun violence presentation 4 times a year, each year of your probation, at a grade school, a middle school, a boys or girls club, anything like that, that type of group. And if you want to, that presentation can include a benefit concert, and these presentations may count towards your required community service hours, which I'm going to impose, that during each year of your probation, you perform 100 hours of community service. You are, and this is required by the fact that there's a gang conviction. You shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of any criminal street gang. Exception to that, if your brother is a member of any street gang, I hope you talk him into getting out of it. Quantavious Greer, and then also Sergio Kitchens, as long as you are contractually obligated to him. That is going to include anybody who is named in this indictment, except as absolutely necessary to conduct the lawful business of your musical career, and to any extent that the state is not agreeing to the exception for Mr. Kitchens. In the event that that part is not enforceable because it is only a portion of a special condition, I'm going to provide that that be severable from the rest of this, and I'll put some case sites in the Senate sheet for that. You are in no way to promote any criminal street gang or any criminal street gang activity, including on any social media platform. You are not to utilize any hand signs, terminology, or language that promotes any criminal street gang. You are not to participate in any criminal street gang activity. You are not to knowingly engage in any contact with any of the victims that are listed in this indictment or with any of their family members. And you may not have in your possession or with arm's reach any kind of a firearm because you're going to be a convicted felon. And that is, except I know that you have security and you need security. You can be within arm's reach of a firearm that is in the possession of either licensed law enforcement or licensed security personnel that are in your security detail or anybody that you're performing with.
They weren't now. We'll look at
You
that.
are to submit to random drug screens and not use any drugs unless they are prescribed for you by a licensed physician. You are to execute a Fourth Amendment waiver that will permit the search of your person, residence, vehicles, and electronics for any firearms, any criminal street gang paraphernalia, or any illicit drugs. And as I mentioned with regard to one of the first of your co-defendants from this trial, at least since I've been involved, to plead guilty. Our Uniform Superior Court rules instruct and provide that it is absolutely proper for a judge to grant leniency in sentencing when, quote, the interests of the public and the effective administration of criminal justice are served, unquote. And I think that this plea is in the interest of the public and in the interest of effective administration of justice. Have been trying to ensure that to the extent I can, this trial also abides by that. It's been challenging at certain times.
Very challenging.
I find your plea to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences, and I accept it as such. I also need to inform you that your attorneys were going to represent you through either the last day of this term of court or 30 days from now, whichever is later, and any of the filings that were mentioned that need to be filed within
I'm
that
not
time,
certain either,
they would
Kristen.
file on your behalf unless they are
I'm in the
permitted to
Midwest.
withdraw from representing you before that time. I am not going to impose the conditions suggested by your council about the benefit concerts and the donations to the sheriff's office, but I certainly strongly encourage you to do those things and to do and continue to do things that benefit your community and especially help young people to stay out of criminal trouble. And unless there is anything from council other than that,
I have one matter, Your Honor.
okay, and does the state as well?
Yeah, that's right.
Your Honor, with regards to Mr. Williams being permitted to come to the Metro Atlanta area
Yes.
or Cleveland Avenue area for funeral or the other items,
Right.
can you also consider, God forbid, there's a serious medical condition of a person that
In
is,
his immediate family,
yeah.
certainly, we can add that. And I also meant to mention, because I know you do travel all over in order to pursue your career, that it's permissible for your probation to be transferred to out of state, and that has to be done through probation, but that is fine with the court. And you may also keep your, nobody's mentioned it, but keep your passport and travel out of state and internationally to the extent that you need to do that for business purposes as well. All right, Mr. Body.
Yes, Attorney Whitcomb, thank you. The district attorney just wanted me to urge the court, due to the fact that the Thomases have been negatively affected incredibly traumatically by what has been discussed by both parties here today, to make a brief statement as she believes they fall within the exception or within the bounds of Marxist law. If the court would allow, I understand the court made a ruling earlier as it relates to that, but she wants to.
it's over now.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate, well, I cannot even begin to understand what they must, anybody must be going through when they lose a family member to violence or criminal violence. Mr. Williams himself has expressed his own sorrow to the family. I, again, am going to stand by my belief that the appropriate time to hear a victim impact statement from them is at the close of the trial that contains the murder count with regard to their family member. All right, thank you. Okay, court is adjourned. Good luck to you. And I'm going to have there better be no violations, but if there are any, you're coming back to see me.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so I'm going to fast forward it to.
But since the
Let's take a recess and I'll be back.
Okay, we're gonna fast forward it to the part about SB and Yak, and then we'll
imprisonment,
discuss.
he's charged with count 57, which was participation in criminal street gang activity, which carries a sentence of 5 to 20 years. He was also charged with count 58, which is violation of the Georgia Controlled Substance Act. That is for the possession
Right, marijuana.
of marijuana, which carries a sentence of 1 to 10 years. As the count 59, I believe that's a possession of codeine with the intent to distribute, which is 5 to 30 years. And count 59, which is the possession of cocaine, which is
60 is possession of cocaine.
so 59 was the codeine, 60 is the possession of cocaine, which was 1 to 5 years. Possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, which was count 61, which is 5 years to serve consecutive to
Thank you,
any kind of
Em.
indictment. Possession of a machine gun,
fine.
which was count 62, which was
A
10
baby
years to
boy.
serve consecutive. And then he was charged with count 63, which is possession of a firearm by convicted felon pursuant to 1611-133. I know my method isn't the best, but that's life plus some years. The state's recommendation, Your Honor, was for Mr. Kendrick to plead to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which was 20 to serve 15. Count 2, the murder reduced to voluntary manslaughter, 20 years to serve 15. And then to the gang count 57, also 20 years to serve 15, all to run concurrent, and the state was willing to null pros all the other counts in the indictment.
All right, and Mr. Kendrick and the attorneys associated with you, I want to make sure that y'all know that unlike what happened with Mr. Williams, if you plead non-negotiated to less than all of the charges, there is nothing that the court can do if the state chooses to go forward with some of those charges. So you could not do what Mr. Williams pled guilty or nolo to each of the charges that he was facing. You cannot say, well, I'd like to plead guilty to count 1 and I'd like to plead to the reduced charge on count 2. And then I'd like to just skip the rest of them, because the state can say, well, we're not skipping the rest of them. We're still going to try you for the rest of them. And the state can also say, we're not okay with letting you plead to voluntary manslaughter unless you abide by the terms of the agreement. We're going to go forward with the murder trial. So
We just like being in my
I know
face.
that Mr. Weinstein, you and Mr. Apt and everybody else who's been helping know that, but because things seem to have worked out sort of beneficially for some of these other people who have already pled, y'all might think, oh, well, gosh, can't we do something better than that? Given what you're facing, they hold a lot of the cards, and a lot of it is outside of the ability of this court to change. Okay. All right.
We understand that, Your Honor. Thank you for advising
All
us of
right.
that.
All right. Mr. Stillwell is facing.
Your Honor, Mr. Stillwell is also looking at count one, which the conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which is 5 to 20 years. He is facing 2 counts of murder for count 2 and count 49, which each carries a sentence of life imprisonment. He's also charged with count 50 of this indictment, Your Honor, which is participation in criminal street gang activity, which carries a sentence of 5 to 20 years. He's also charged with count 51, participation in criminal street gang activity, also a sentence of 5 to 20 years. Count 52, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, previously convicted under 1611-133, which is 15 years consecutive to
I got
the
something
indictment.
about that.
54, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, which is 5 years to serve consecutive. Count 64, which is another possession of a firearm by a convicted felon under 1611-133, which is also 15 years to serve consecutive. So Mr. Stillwell's looking at maximum of 2 life sentences plus
85 years.
Plus 85 years, Your Honor. The state's recommendation, and I'll just say globally, Your Honor, was 60 years to serve 40 years in prison, that we would have reduced both of the murders to voluntary manslaughter, Your Honor. And we had given his attorney the option to kind of craft how that 40 years would look. But that was the extent to our
right.
negotiations, Your Honor.
And Mr. Stillwell, kind of the same information to you. If the state does not want to reduce charges, you're not entitled to plead to reduce charges. They can say, you got to face these murder charges and we're going to make it a jury trial if you don't agree to what we're offering. Same thing, you can't say, well, I'd like those other charges dismissed if they're not willing to dismiss them in exchange for the negotiated sentence. So obviously each of you has the right to continue with the trial. What you're doing, you are all have very capable attorneys representing you, who clearly care very passionately about you all personally, as well as presenting your best case. But it's ultimately going to be up to the jury, and you cannot know what any jury is going to do. And they may say, I don't believe a single bit of this beyond a reasonable doubt. Y'all are both welcome. They may say, you know what, I buy this, I don't buy that. I'm convicting you of 4 of the 5 or 4 of the 8 charges. You're still then going to face sentencing. They may convict you of everything. And if you are convicted of everything, Mr. Stillwell, you're facing 2 life sentences plus 85 years on top of that, as opposed to 40 years to serve with parole as a possibility. And Mr. Kendrick, you are facing life plus, I think I added up 115 years instead of 20 to serve 15. So it's just something to think about. And I mean, it's already past 5 o'clock. So are y'all going to leave the offer open until you have withdrawn the offer before you even put it on the record to?
We communicated this to them last night, but they did not accept it. They would have withdrawn off.
All right, well, given that the state spent the entire day negotiating Mr. Williams' plea, ultimately unsuccessfully, I don't know if either Mr. Weinstein or Mr. Sharp would have been able to negotiate with you during today.
They would have, no, we didn't have any communication from Mr. Weinstein or Mr. And they rejected the offer.
Okay.
I did have communication with Mr. Abate today. I attempted to have communications with the DA last Tuesday morning, but she failed to show up for our meeting.
Any chance y'all might leave it open until 9 o'clock tomorrow?
Your Honor, I'll consult with the DA and if she wishes to read.
Okay, I mean, I have no idea whether they want to keep it, but I haven't, we haven't put it on the record, and I haven't ensured myself as the court that they understood what the potential sentences were up until just now. So I would appreciate it if she would, so that they have the opportunity, having heard from the court, to talk to their attorneys. And they may still say that we're
Let me do
going
my
forward.
job.
We'll consult with the attorney.
Okay. So in the event that it is no longer open to you, or that you decide to reject it anyway, I plan to start the trial again Monday morning. I'm going to have the jury be here at 9. I'm going to have us be here at 8:30. We're back to getting no sleep. So I'll see y'all at 8:30 regardless. Okay, now court is adjourned.
All right. All right. So there's that. There's that. The state is sneaky. Oh, if I could put on my Tyler Perry voice, they sneaky. Not only did they do it once with Nuts family, but they did it twice. Twice. They're like, they should get to speak. Even though this man is not charged with the crime, they should get to speak out against his sentencing. It's not okay. I absolutely do think, I mean, you know, there's a bunch of rumor mills about Fonnie Willis and Nut and maybe have been dealing with each other at some point in time. I don't know if that's any truth to that or not, or if this is just her trying to save face. But clearly there's something to that, you know, clearly. Factual, girl, I'll match you that 500. I will match that 500 that Love is gonna try to sneak something in. I got you. Got you. We both would end up not even have to pay each other because we both would win. We should start like a little bucket. Bucket of how long to the next mistrial. Whoever gets closest wins the bucket. I had really mixed emotions because, you know, even just the day before that, I was like, you know, Thug is not going to take a felony. He's going to need to be able to travel and da-da-da-da-da. And not only that, but also at the same time, I was like, you know what? He's not guilty. Shut the door behind you, boo. Shut it all the way. Thank you, Papa. I'm like, why would he take that? But then clearly the negotiations kind of like seemed somewhat fruitful enough that he felt like he had hope. And we're just regular lay people. We're not in his shoes currently. We weren't facing what he was potentially facing. I mean, just to break it down, the state was initially willing to give him 43 years, 5 years time served, 15 years probation to equal 20, and then 23 years backloaded at the end of his probation if he successfully quits or successfully finishes probation. They would basically do away with it. Willing to release him that day. But they had a bunch of special conditions that they wanted him to agree to. And the rumor mill has kind of been wild with that because, of course, Brian still says, you know, plea negotiations are confidential. So he wasn't willing to disclose that. But there had been talks that, you know, they wanted his music to be a certain way and his monies from his music to be spent a certain type of way. They wanted his assets, as you've seen, to be handed over and not be asked for back. They wanted control over who he could work with as far as his musical career and who he couldn't work with. So I think that there may be some fact. Do I know that for certain? Absolutely not. But it seems like there may be some legitimacy to some of those special conditions. Hell, we know what Moontoon's special conditions look like. They were unique in of themselves. So that the interesting part about it is the drugs that was found in his house was his drugs for personal consumption. But, you know, what I consume as opposed to what he consumed clearly is much different. And they were like, oh, well, it's intent to distribute because it's over a certain amount for legal consumption. Yeah, we got to do something about these laws, including the fact that that stuff is legal almost everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Chief Keef said he go through an ounce a day. That's his personal consumption. So I can imagine that Thugs was probably pretty close. Yeah, whichever state attorney has his pink car, what was that, a Mercedes or something like that? They're gonna have to give it up. Give up his cars. His black car, give it up. Y'all gonna have to give him his stuff back. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie. I was thinking about it. I know his girlfriend, Mariah the Scientist, was on tour. I was like, baby girl, you're going to have to take a slight little deviation. You're going to have to be like, look, I'll meet y'all at that next stop. Because daddy's home. And probably in dire need of some loving. You're going to have to go and give him enough for a week and a couple of days. Do your next show, come back home, give daddy some breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then go back to the next show. So she too is going to be very wore out for the next couple of weeks because Papa is home. You know what I'm saying? The jury that he got, that I guess, you know, when they were doing the jury selection, there was a couple of owners of jewelry stores that was trying to get their jewelry back because they had froze all his assets. So, you know, payments couldn't go through. So they're like, can we get our stuff back? You know what? I'd be 100% honest. I'd just give him the mess back and be like, you know what? I'm going to just go get me a little herringbone. You know, I don't need all that extra stuff. I mean, this trial has shown he don't really need all this stuff, but Thug is a fashionista. Let's keep it 100, keep it a buck. He is a fashionista. One thing that man know how to do is dress. He dresses his butt off on an everyday basis. Look at him in the courtroom. So, you know, when he get out here, he gonna start stunting. A part of me is like, I hope he take the next couple of months and just relax and enjoy him, get some massages, you know, just do whatever it is he wants to do. If he decided to go camping in the middle of winter, go do that. Go fishing, you know. And I heard people say, go buy you a property in Utah and just stay there on your compound. Hey, go do that. But keep that land that you own in Georgia. Don't sell that because that's what they really want. Don't let them have that. Those things that they really want. If it's that house, sell the house. Say, I'll give y'all the half of the monies for the house. You know, I'm sure Brian got a whole way to negotiate that. But, you know, y'all don't have rights to all his stuff. He pled guilty because it was in his best interest. Those things that were found in his home were found in his home. He couldn't do anything about that. They were there. I mean, if you've actually watched that whole Brian Steele going into it, he literally said that there was people who said that those were their guns. They were going to come testify that those were theirs. They didn't get there. That's a part of the reason why he wasn't okay with pleading out. He was like, we had enough to beat this, you know, but Thug had the opportunity. Jeffrey had the opportunity to go home. He could go home. And when faced with the opportunity of going home, being able to spend Christmas with your babies, being able to spend Christmas with your mom, getting a home cooked meal, we all seen Jeffrey gain so much weight. We were like, oh, wait, what? But you know what the bonus is? The best part of it is he was able to get off of those drugs. His mind was clear. He was able to consider everything and put thought into it. He can rap about whatever he wants to within a certain limits, but him not coming back to Atlanta except for family emergencies and work for the next and his community service for the next 10 years, that's a good thing. Because people aren't going to have as much access to him. People aren't going to have the access to him for him to end up in another situation like that. And that is amazing. He won't have to worry about that type of stuff. Those people that really are for him and that really care about him will come to where he is to support if they're family friend. You know what I mean? And those of us that are so excited for him, you know, we can support through his concerts, his benefit concerts or whatever. You know, I hope he does come to the Midwest and do something so I can go and show my support. Yeah, exactly. Telling a painter you can't use the color white. Okay, well, you know, I use a real light blue. I use a real light gray. Whatever. I can use what you gave me and make it work. Any true artist that wants to come work with me, they can come to where I'm at. I got a studio in my house. We can make this work. So that was, you did him a favor with that. He kept his passport. He still gets to travel to whatever country will have him. You know, if he decides to go take a 2-month hiatus and be somewhere in another country, just chilling on the beach, recouping and regaining his energies, he gets to do that. He can go home and go have a steak. Today is Saturday. She gave him 48 hours. So by tonight, he'll be back home in California. And if he decides to go build a house in the Midwest, I mean, in Utah or something like that, he'll be great. If he decides to come to the Midwest and build him a mansion somewhere out in the country, he can do that for way less than what it'll cost him in California, I'm sure. But you know what I mean? Like, you could build a mansion for less than $1 million out here, and it'd be just as nice as some of the ones you see in Atlanta. That's like $4 and $5 million. But you know, that was a celebratory movement. I mean, 15 years on probation is a very long time, and you don't know what could happen that may potentially cause an issue. But this is the thing. If he's about to do something and he's not 100% certain that this is the move, he has the type of lawyer he can call and be like, hey, Brian, I'm wanting to do this, that, and the third. Is that okay? Will this violate me? Will this cause a problem? And if Brian says no, then now he has the legal understanding. That's cool. I can do that. You know? Regardless, he gets to be with his kids for the holidays. And that's what I find joy in. He gets to go be with his girlfriend and spend time with her. Yeah. Silver lining them. Yeah. I get, you know, Atlanta is his home, but I also get how people in Atlanta was able to put him in middle of situations. What did we hear Woody say? I just made it up. I mixed a little bit with the truth and a little bit with the lie, and I made up the story. But they were willing to they were dead set on using those lies to convict that man for the rest of his life. And although Woody is very sorry for those things 10 years later, it didn't stop and it didn't change the fact that that man was fighting for his life based off of that. Now, is some of what happened with Thug a lie? Open to interpretation. There may be some truth in behind some of those things. I'm not saying he's an angel, but he said, I'm guilty of something, and I'm willing to accept the things that I'm guilty on. I think he will do great things. I really, truly do think he will do great things, and I'm excited to see what he does. We're now going to watch the Steele interview. Actually, before that, I want you guys to see a little clip because I was so excited to see this. It says, who was it? Mag TV did a little few-minute spot where supposedly, I don't know if this is true or not, but let me pull it up. Supposedly, Thug FaceTimes T.I. Once he gets out. I don't know if this is real. I'm just kind of scared. But I am curious. I am curious to know if this is real or not. It's on Mag TV.
We did it together, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud to stand alongside you. And one of you, you know, I feel like, you know, we set out on a journey together. All of the cash is rap. Hey!
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Y'all see that?
Welcome home. What's happening, brother?
I did it.
What's up, brother?
You can move, baby, but I got it already. That is amazing. So yeah, I'm gonna stop right there with that one. I was just like, oh wow, that was cool for me. That was cool. I was like, okay, you know, that's a collab coming soon. It's loading. That's a collab loading. You know, I'm sure T.I. is going to be extremely supportive of whatever Thug has going on and however he can help. But let's get into my boo things. Brian Steele and Keith Adams. They are going to give their opinions after the helicopter goes.
Brian Steele, BrianSteel.
And I'm Keith Adams, KeithAdams.
And talk us through the decision to do a plea when all right, if y'all don't mind talking
Yeah,
through the
Kristen.
decision to
T.I.'s
make
been
the
through it
plea
too.
and just
Twice.
how today ended up going and transpiring.
Well, this was excruciating because
It
hopefully,
was.
in our collective opinion, Jeffrey would have been found not guilty of everything. So this is very painful. But that's another 3 months or so in custody. And he wants to go home to his family. And negotiations totally broke down with the district attorney's office. Horribly broke down. And at that point, we believe that justice will be found with the honorable court. And Jeffrey just wanted to go home. How agonizing it is to know that we've spent a year trying a case where the prosecutors have put on lies, knowing lies, hiding evidence, is insane in 2024 in the United States of America. And the only reason that this got revealed is because of you people. You people brought the truth to the community because nobody knows this. This is not the only courtroom it's happening in. And I just want to thank all of you.
Everybody that started streaming, YouTubing, and watching, and talking, and sharing.
I think he's a wonderful person.
You guys
He does
did
wonderful
amazing.
things and will
We did
continue to do
amazing.
things even greater. I cannot express to you how Shaquille Kokomo,
Let's keep doing amazing.
how Trisha
We're not
Renard,
done yet.
how Haley, how my wife Colette, how Bram, how countless people, but especially Miss Courtney Edwards, has worked without sleep for 3 years representing Jeffrey and helping him. I will never be able to stand with anyone more ethical, honest, hardworking, insightful, intelligent, and kind than the Honorable Keith Adams. The gentleman to my left is the best lawyer in the country.
Mr. Steele, do you think prosecutors negotiated in good faith at all during any of these negotiations?
Let me take this one. Let me answer that.
He said Brian's still gonna go off.
The short answer is no. This is a case that possibly could have been resolved if folks were reasonable. But we did not believe that we could enter into good faith negotiations with people who wanted a case resolved.
I think she's someone on
in a
Steele's
manner
team
simply to save face.
that helps.
And Jeffrey Williams was not going to say things that they wrote for him, that they wanted him to say, that was their theory when it wasn't true.
They wanted another
And so,
Mook.
good faith, no. I don't believe we were ever really negotiating in good faith. And you've been here the past year that this case has been on trial. You've seen the numerous motions for mistrial. You've seen the behavior of the state. You've seen the dishonesty. You've seen everything being hidden. You've seen things come out in court in front of you. And so you know what kind of prosecution we were dealing with. And that's okay. You know, Mrs. Steele and I have fought through this the past 2.5 years. And as he said, we ultimately decided we were going to put our faith in the court as opposed to the folks on the other side of the aisle. And, you know, the best thing out of all of this is that Jeffrey Williams, in a very short period of time, will be home. And that's all we've wanted from May 9th, when they went and picked him up and have held him in jail without a bond for the past 2.5 years. He'll be home shortly.
Keith and Brian, this either one of you can answer. So I have 2 questions for you. First off, you go into a blind plea, you don't know, right? There's no nothing for sure. What was your emotions like when you guys went into that? I would imagine the conversation. Can you kind of take us into the room before you went out into court, what the conversations were back and forth? Obviously, I know there's attorney-client privilege, but it's a big decision.
Well, I didn't want to give up the jury trial, but that was a decision made. And once that decision was made, we were just thankful that there are people like the Honorable Judge Whitaker who understands what a trial is like and what it should be like. And I cannot thank the Honorable Court for being here and coming in. She is not our first judge, but she's the first time we received justice.
Mr. Adams, this is your second high-profile RICO case here in Fulton County. Do you think that maybe the prosecutor's office is abusing the statute? And what are your opinions of RICO generally?
I have, for the 30 some odd years that I practiced law, always believed that if you, as a prosecutor, think that someone has committed a crime, you charge them with the crime, you put it in front of a jury, and then you do it fairly and let the chips fall where they may. The courtroom is not the place to get adventurous, to get inventive, to think, well, we don't have evidence on him for any of these incidents, but maybe, if just maybe, we tie him up in a RICO and put him with people who may have committed crimes, we can get him that way. That's an abuse.
Right.
And so, yes, for some strange reason, the Fulton County DA's office seems to be in love with RICO. And my honest opinion is that they're in love with it because it makes it easier for them to try and convict people that they otherwise could not convict.
Yep.
And that's what was happening here.
Absolutely.
We're fighting a mountain, reams of evidence, most of which didn't have anything to do with us. And so is it an abuse?
Yeah.
I think it is. There are better ways to, and I used to be a prosecutor, right? And I can tell you that there are better ways to prosecute cases than the way this case was prosecuted.
Yep.
You guys obviously rejected initially what the state was going to offer. Is there some details you can give us? Because it sounds like from what you guys decided in the court, I mean, it's still pretty stringent. There's a lot of different details, but what was the state asking for that you guys rejected?
I'm not going to get into plea negotiations because they are privileged under statute, but it was outrageous. They would let him out of custody.
Yeah.
But they would have a tether around him so tight that it's unconscionable.
And how are y'all feeling about what the sentencing is, especially with not being able to be in Metro Atlanta except for specific parameters? And how is Mr. Williams feeling about that decision?
You know, we're okay with the sentence. There comes a time in any case, if a person is sentenced, that we're out of the courtroom, and now what happens to that person is entirely up to them. Jeffrey Williams is a fantastically talented man. He is a great person, become a great friend over the course of the last couple of years. And he has the ability, the incentive to go forth and do everything he needs to do to put this behind him. And we're confident that he will. One of the questions you asked a little earlier was, what was that feeling like stepping into a courtroom to do what's called a blind plea, not knowing what's going to happen? You know, it's a scary feeling for all involved.
Right.
There's probably no feeling quite like that other than sitting in a courtroom waiting for a jury to come out and tell you what your fate is.
We're going to speed this up. Just because.
But we walked in there knowing that we were in front of a fair tribunal and being
that is so true.
That the right thing was going to happen, and the right thing did.
What do you think about your client just serving as a role model? Obviously, as part of the agreement, he's going to be participating in the community, doing events, things like that. Obviously, he has a huge reach for what he does for a living.
I've known Jeffrey Williams. I've defended him for over a decade. I have been with him where we go to young children, children in need, children who are going down the wrong way. And he tells exactly what he's going to continue to say. He tells everybody, this is not a good life. We have to stop the generational disaster that is plaguing the community. And although right now I'm successful, I'm a product, but every one of you can get out. And he always stresses education. Jeffrey Williams is a great person, a great role model, and he will do even better now, hopefully, if you allow him and his words to get out.
Yeah.
As far as how Jeffrey's feeling now,
He knows my feelings, which I'm
That's
not
what
going
kind
to
of got
reveal
me
for
when you if you
against
allow
my
him in his
privilege.
words to get
But
out. I'm like, are they
this
trying
is not the same as a not
to
guilty plea.
stop
That should
how
have been
he
around.
does music?
But nobody here wakes up every day on a concrete floor that they're calling his bed, gets up at 4:15, gets shackled on his feet, his waist, and his hands, comes to the Fulton County Courthouse to be on concrete, eating out of a bag. Doritos is his meal of choice. And then coming to a courtroom and sit there with a leg chain on him every single day and hear lie after lie. So for Jeffrey to go home today and not have another 90 days or 120 days of it, he is very happy, thankful to the Honorable Court. So to answer your question, this was not what I wanted. I don't believe that it is just, but I believe that under these circumstances, it is justice for Jeffrey Williams, and he is delighted, as are we. I'm thankful.
Can I ask you, you were standing right next to him as he was addressing the judge. What seemed like a very sincere apology to her, or apology for what happened, what has gone on. How did you feel sitting next to him, knowing him for the last decade as an attorney for him, about what he was saying and what he was telling the judge?
Jeffrey Williams is being truthful. That is his heartfelt feelings. He feels so bad for the loss of life, and he feels bad that people are taking his music or his social postings and making it into violence.
Right.
That is all promotion. That is not a symbol of go hurt somebody. So I hope I've answered your question directly, but how I felt, I've heard that from Jeffrey over and over again.
You called out a lot of challenges in this trial based on the prosecution's points. Do you have any message to, the co-counsel that for now is still on trial, or what's left of this?
Oh my God, they are phenomenal lawyers, and I'm confident if you keep going, which I assume you will see some great lawyering. Yeah. They don't need my help.
And the truth is, they've been there with us for the past 2.5 years. They're aware of what they're up against. They are totally capable of handling it. And I presume we'll step in from time to time because, in this fight in the past 2.5 years, we've been together. So we needed something, they've been there to assist. And if they need something, we're happy to step right back in and assist. But they're great lawyers. Max Shard, Doug Weinstein, those gentlemen are in great hands. They'll be fine.
I will say this.
Oh, I bet
I
they were like, you can't discuss this trial.
That an innocent man is arrested on May 9th,
music.
2022, is denied bond, and has to plead guilty and nolo to get freedom after 2.5 years in custody. That should not happen. Nobody should be on trial. Jurors, think about what they're going through. Nobody should be on trial like this. And if Mr. Williams didn't have the resources, this never happens well for anybody. So I think it's an abuse, to answer the AJC's question. I think it's an abuse of the statute of RICO to do this to people.
Is it fair to say you don't believe justice was served today?
I believe that Mr. Williams is home, and I'm delighted. Justice would have been served on May 8th of 2022 if the grand jury no-billed his indictment. That would have been just. And it's wrong to be under investigation. He's been under investigation for 15 years. 15 years by task force of federal government and local government. Think about that. Think about your children doing that. And that's okay. If it's okay with you all, then we should really start moving to another country. I want to thank everybody so much for everything you do. I cannot thank you all, because without you guys, no, this just keeps rolling in injustice. It's got to end. The criminal justice system, the presumption of innocence, the Brady rules, the ethical rules, they have to survive. Otherwise, we all are victims of this. Anyone can sit in that seat next to Keith Adams. Thank you all so much.
And no one sees it unless you guys do what you do. But I tell you what, there is a whole world of people out there who have watched this trial over the course of the past 2.5 years. The past year, we've actually been in the courtroom trying the case, who are much more educated.
All right, so that was like a hand clap. As you can see, still very frustrated because he legitimately, was like, hey, we can take this all the way. I know we can get this stuff knocked down. But then you always have that thought in the back of your head of like, well, what happens if the jury doesn't say not guilty? You end up having to go do time because they're going to recommend 100 years. That's going to be the DA's recommendation. Look at the DA's recommendation now. When they refuse to go through with the plea negotiations or whatever they wanted, they said, they try to change it up. Well, Judge, we want him to serve, we want to recommend 43 and then him go serve 20. Initially, regardless of what you said then, initially you were saying, if he plead like we want him to plead and say what we want him to say and forfeit all his stuff, we'll let him leave today on probation today. But then they try to change it up. Now, I'm going to read this off of Thugger Daily, and this is on X, so if you want to go check it out, head over there. This was the DA's response to the Keith Adams and Brian Steele press conference. The convictions in this case represent accountability for admitted members of YSL, a violent street gang. Mr. Williams chose to plead guilty to all of the charges against him and allow the judge to determine his sentence. Every criminal defendant in every case has the right to make that decision at any time. This indictment includes 28 defendants, with 14 having charges remaining to be resolved, including murder, criminal street gang activity, racketeering, and crimes and other crimes. We are still in the middle of the process of reaching verdicts on those charges, and will continue to work to bring justice in those cases. Again, y'all want to start a mistrial pool? Because we know it's coming. Is that everybody won and nobody won? The state wanted to close out as many of these 6 that were on trial as they could because they want the conviction rate before the election next week. They got that. That was a win for them. They wanted Jeffrey on leadership charges and on RICO, for sure. So if they would have got those 2, then they could have very easily been like, well, you know, he owes Donovan Thomas's family. They didn't get that. They didn't get that. What he said is, I'm taking responsibility for participating in street gang activity. He didn't say YSL was a gang, but do y'all got me a part of some other stuff? Possibly. And I'm taking accountability for the things that you guys found in my house. That is it. Is that a loss because now he has a felony? Several? Yeah, it is. But it was the best ending that he could have possibly faced with everything that he was fighting with right now, in his opinion. And that's why he was willing to do it. He was able to get on the phone after all that was over and call up people that he's been friends with for decades and say, hey, how are you? He was able to get on FaceTime with his girl and say, baby, I miss you. Without the, you have a collect call from a Fulton County inmate. Please press if you're willing to accept the call. You know what I'm saying? He was able to go see his babies and go hug them and kiss them and tell them that he loved them. You know, he has a kid or a couple of kids that their mother's no longer here. She passed away. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that in itself was a win for him, you know? No, they didn't want to address the fact that he went home. Nim, they didn't want to address that. You can call it what you want to. I'll be the first to say I was hoping him to keep fighting. But if he felt like that he could end this fight, why not end the fight? And that's what he chose to do. He chose to end the fight. Yeah, he has a few kids, you know. he don't like to pull out. I'm just be very blunt. He don't. He like to keep pushing. You know what I'm saying? He got some babies out here. But you know, he also seems to be a pretty active dad as well. So he get to be there for his babies that's gonna be graduating and go to their graduation. Yeah, he get to get back on his daddy stuff. He get to get back on his boyfriend stuff. He get to get back to his life and try to rebuild what the Fulton County DA's office is trying to take away. You know, they're trying to take away his label. They're trying to take away his homes. They're trying to take away his cars. They're trying to take away his toothbrushes. They're trying to take away his everything, you know, and say, you know, we need access to that. So he has to rebuild what he got or what he can have. He gets a second chance, literally a second chance. Now, with Yak and SB, Yak was facing life plus, I think she said 115 years, but the state's offer was 20 to serve 15. But they wanted him to plead to manslaughter of the Donovan Thomas situation. They want to attribute Donovan Thomas to one of them. And so Jack wasn't willing to do that. It's probably, I mean, that's probably the main one. He's like, no, because just because y'all can put me in close proximity doesn't mean that y'all can put that on me. So that's his fight. You know, because they want, the whole point of this RICO is to give somebody the charge for the Donovan Thomas and the Chamel drinks. They want the two left in that courtroom to take accountability for Donovan Thomas and Chamel drinks. SB, he has 2 life sentences plus 83, 20 to serve 15, but they want him to take accountability for the Chamel drinks unaliving and the Donovan Thomas situation. Those are the 2 M's that they're trying to give him. And he's like, no. Again, part of the reason why they brought RICO is so they could tie up all these charges in the RICO and try to make somebody plead out to him. They too were willing to drop his M charges to manslaughter. Say, serve 15, we'll let you out. They're like, no. Yeah, you can't. I agree that you can't really ever trust a jury. You really, really never know. But I think what they're also banking on is they're going to get another mistrial happening pretty soon. It's going to come again. I think they know it's going to come again. And when it does, then they'll have the opportunity to just, see what happens then. I understood what the judge said, which was, you never know. You can't make the state drop charges or no pros charges. You got to kind of take what you give them. I may or may not be willing to do a non-negotiated plea deal with you. So for them, they want to continue fighting and see what happens so they can at least present their case. Now, is the jury gonna walk in there on Monday and be like, I'm sure they're very well aware that Thug is free. I'm sure they're very well aware that he pled to some charges. I'm pretty sure when they consider all of that in its totality, that they're going from 6 defendants to 2, that they're going to be like, well, somebody was willing to accept something, some kind of responsibility. But I don't think the M charges is one that you need to just be throwing it at people just for the sake of throwing it at people. I feel like that's a charge because there are so many people involved. You got people of the accused, you got people of the deceased that are involved, loved ones, friends. Those charges need to be the ones that you just have everything lined up to a T when you're bringing it. That's my own personal opinion about that. Yeah. Pleading to an M charge is different than pleading to a gun charge or drug charge. Completely different. They were giving him guilt by association. It was in your house. This is your house. Your name is on the deed. We found it in your house. They didn't have to find it in his bedroom or his bathroom. It was found on your kitchen counter or on the living room table, whatever. It's yours. It's like kind of if it's found in your car. If the car is in your name, then they kind of just throw it on you. Yeah, I trusted on Love to take us to a mistrial to them. I really did. But I see that Hilton and Abade they can do a great job. Or what's the other one that almost did it? Was it just Hilton? I swear I thought it was the one that everybody be calling BBL Brown or something like that. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't think Atkins has caused one yet, but I'm sure individually they or Abate almost did with the whole those guys that were supposed to testify a couple of weeks ago and then they sent it back to the jail. But I trust the state to do exactly what the state gonna do: lie, manipulate, make stuff up in hopes of trying to get a conviction. And I trust the defense to do exactly what they're gonna do is call them out on it. And Jeffrey called it. He said, Your Honor, you did the thing that I never thought would happen, which was at least bring some fairness to this trial. I knew with you I had a fair shot. I didn't know whether you would say yes or no, but I knew with you I would at least have a fair shot. Because before, we had Greasy Glanville, who, what did he say? You had to convince him that the sky was blue because he was going to tell you the sky was red. How many times did he say, no, you haven't proved that and you haven't presented any evidence of law to admit that you could do that, even though the discovery was the evidence that proved that he wasn't supposed to do that? You know what I'm saying? Who got in those ex partes with Love and Hilton and said, yeah, I've seen a lot of the defense doing sticky stuff with the witnesses. Yeah, I've been tracking it. I've been having my deputies go and pull security feeds to see who they're talking to and who they're conversing with. I mean, for sure, the DA did it with Montauk because they knew Montauk wouldn't talk to Jeffrey's dad. You didn't come talk to us, but you went and talked to them. Outside, there you go, Nim. Outside agitators. At the end of the day, we guys, we get to celebrate the fact that Jeffrey is free. I hope that he, a part of me like hopes that he goes back and sees all, like, I know he doesn't want to relive all of this stuff over and over again, but I just hope, he does go back and look at like Cat's Chat and I'm Not a Lawyer Bud and Infamous Sylvia and see how, we go hard for him in the chats, how we're like right, wrong, or indifferent. We're like rooting for justice, rooting for the truth, rooting for the honor system. Everybody went into this thinking like, okay, the DA got all this stuff. Surely they're going to prove their case. And then we all start watching and listening to the case and we're like, dang, no. What? I'm sorry, April O'Neil's baby daddy. I started like almost 2 hours ago, boo. I started a long time ago. Your girl was moving. But I kind of do. Part of me, like a little piece of me, a little piece of me is like, I hope he understands, like thousands of us was like, we got you back. We couldn't leave our respective homes. There's people all over the country, Europe, Australia, Africa. Like, we got you, sir. We are here rooting for you. And I know he would just be amazed if, he truly understood that. But that's just my little sneaky dinky wish. April O'Neil's baby daddy, feel free to join in on this rant. I wish, I'm not even gonna cap. I wish I could. I should have recorded myself, but y'all, it was crazy. So where I live is probably a good 40 minutes from where I work, and so I was on like the main highway, like, this bad. But I was saying the word like, this bad, screaming it. I was so pissed, My pistivity was like up here. Like, I was so hot. I was like, and they want to take all of his money. They want to take his cars. They want to take his house. They're trying to leave him with nothing. So yeah, I was losing my shit. I really was. I really was. Because I was just like, I was so upset. I guess I really should have, but like I was scared myself because I was so pissed off. I was like losing. And it was Halloween too. So I'm like, I got to get home because these babies got to go trick or treat. But I was like walking around the house. I'm trying to get them dressed. And I'm like talking to us like, oh, this bitch got me messed up. Oh, she got me messed up. Like, I was pissed like it was me. Like, that was me on trial. I'm like, oh, she got me fucked up. Oh. Like, it ain't even my money. It ain't my money. It ain't my, but shit. I was like, how is that justice though? You know what I mean? Like, how, for real, how is that justice? How is it justice to Donovan Thomas just putting his death on anybody instead of making sure that you put it on the one that's responsible for it? Do you even care who's really responsible for it? Are you at all willing to like start over from the very beginning and really reinvestigate? Sprinkle said he didn't look at them tapes over 100 times. Sometimes after you see something so much, you start seeing what you want to see versus what's actually there. Sometimes trauma and PTSD can change the situation. Sometimes I don't know. I think everybody in this trial has been traumatized. I think us onlookers have been traumatized because you know what? Life in general, just being who I am, being the color of my skin, it's made me a little afraid of, a little nervous around, police officers and people within the justice system. Seeing this trial play out the way that it has made me even more nervous about people in the justice system, because how come my life ain't important too? Personally, I think they didn't already calculated what to do with Thug's money. They didn't already calculated what they're gonna do once they sell his house, what they're gonna do with that. And now they trying to figure out, they spinning trying to figure out, because Brian's still gonna argue that till the wheels fall off. Y'all gonna have to fight him. Y'all not gonna just get that. And I ain't gonna lie, they may or may not come before Judge Whitaker again. I think once all the lawsuits and stuff get filed, it gets put back on the calendar, right? But what if they get that judge that did the Fonnie Willis open records thing with Ashley Merchant? You know what I'm saying? What if they get that judge? Because, she's kind of no nonsense too. And she kind of read between the lines also. I pray they don't get Glanville. I do pray. If you get Glanville, he going to try to spin it over. But considering the fact that he probably ain't supposed to touch nothing with anybody on YSL, he got himself recused. I hope he has to recuse himself again. Yeah, the conviction rate and the money, that's all they care about. That's all they care about. That's all they want. They want everyone to plead guilty to RICO. Well, Doug didn't have to plead to guilty, but he pled to the gang count. He didn't plead. He pled NOLO to the RICO and NOLO to the leadership charge, but he did plead to one of the gang counts. Quamarvius Nichols, Marquavius Huey, and Little Rod all pled guilty to the RICO count, but didn't have to plead to the gang count. So, it's kind of interesting how things kind of flip-flopped a little bit there. Sorry, my band was giving me a headache. But I think he's just saying, yeah, I participate in this stuff. I think that Brian also probably advised, like, yo, if you don't at least choose one of these, you don't want that leadership charge, but hey, was you participating in one based off the things that he said in his music? Yeah. He said, I'm a big blood by the way. What is that? Just pass me the hookah. But he had affiliation. He said, yeah, I'm affiliated with a gang. Am I saying my label is a gang? No, but I'm saying I have affiliation with a gang. He did not say YSL is a gang. He wasn't going to say YSL is a gang, nor was he going to admit my label is a gang. It's a freaking label. You know? It's a music label, and it's the label for what is it? Fashion brand. Personally, I think go ahead and change the label. Why not? Rebrand at this point. Rebrand everything. Yeah, I hope like if they ended up, because they're gonna have to do a civil matter and behind Thug's assets. I think because they said they had that little wheel that they put it on and they just automatically assign a judge. If Glanville gets assigned, I hope he recuses himself, because clearly he has proven to not be able to be a fair and impartial judge. He has proven to be an absolute, and maybe that's how they do it over there on the military side of things, that he also does that. But he is proven to be a judge that you are not innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty unless you can prove your innocence. I said what I say and I mean what I say. And sometimes he was easily swayed. Sometimes the defense can argue something and he'll agree with them, and then Love or Hilton get up there and he changed his mind because they wouldn't shut up. And then defense is like, what the what? And you're like, oh, well, yeah. See. What was it initially? That video of Shannon and was it Lil D, the Lil D's in the car when they was talking the game, and they was like, same thing that happened to Biggie and Tupac, initially Judge Glanville ruled that out. Initially he agreed that could not come in. But then they got up there and they got to arguing. Love got to arguing and said, he's saying that if you messing with YSL, you messing with me. If you messing with Thug, you messing with me. And then after about 20 minutes of her not shutting the F up, he said, oh, where it is a statement it's a co-conspirator statement. So we can allow it in. Yeah, I'm gonna allow it. I'm gonna allow it. Initially he ruled out like one of the interviews because there was it DK's interview? I feel like it was DK's interview because at the time, the prosecutor that was in there, I think it was like Cha Jimenez or something like that. He also became a lawyer, like a defense attorney in this case, of one of the severed co-defendants, or maybe it wasn't. I know at some point here recently he showed up for Quarmavius Nichols, and then they went up to the judge's seat and they had a discussion, and then he had to leave, and then they brought that black lady in, the black attorney that was with Harvey. So they sneaky. But yeah, they tried to get that interview thrown out because one of the prosecutors in that interview was now a defense attorney. And Hilton argued that and was like, we don't got a problem with where he chooses to go work. He can go work wherever he want to work. So just because he was a prosecutor then, he ain't now. So we feel like it should still come in. And the judge was like, no, that's going to be a problem. That's going to look impartial. That's going to be a problem. But Hilton argued it should come in anyways. We'll make sure that you can only hear, basically Walter Murphy's voice and any of his voice, even though he was in the room. That's kind of how Fonnie got her knowledge of the YSL case. If we all the way 100, she represented Mondo. YSL Mondo, one of the people who claims that he started YSL, Fonnie Willis represented him in a case. So she had a little bit of backstory on YSL, the game. Mondo got caught with drugs, distribution level. He got caught with money. He got caught with guns. And he too went home. Not too long after that, they started looking into YSL and come up with an indictment after she takes over as the district attorney. Okay. Absolutely. He had PTSD in his third dog. That's from his military days. Now, but love gives me PTSD. Shit. I got a love allergy. I'm not kidding you. Sometimes just seeing her walk into the courtroom, I start like jumping. I got to start itching. And then once I hear her start talking, I start like getting hives. I start breaking out hives as soon as she start talking. My mood will immediately shift. And that is crazy that this trial has had so much of an effect on me. When I start hearing love talk, like my mood immediately starts shifting when I hear her voice. That is crazy. But I've realized that about myself. Like, I realized that the DA's office has not even been looking at the defendants as people. They haven't even been looking at them as people. They have been looking at them as dollar signs and exposure. These people are dollar signs and exposure. So that's how they have been looking at them. That's how they have been treating this case. They are a meal ticket. I find Love's soft voice to be more disturbing than her assertive, this is what I feel like is true and you need to hear me voice. When she gets to talking all aggressive, when she starts talking stuff and she's like, yes, judge. Even when she asked about the whole Donovan Thomas thing and the judge was like, I don't think that's appropriate. And she's like, yes, judge. That to me is more annoying than she's like, and when they said, like when she was reading off the lyrics. That's that slime shit, killing 12 shit. Like when her aggressive voice, I can deal with that because that for me is her true self. That is who she really is. That's probably how she really talk. That's how I really talk. But when she gets yes, judge. Yes, and would you like to hear from the state? Do you want to hear from the state? That's her fake ass voice. That's exactly what that's her fake ass voice. That's her that's her makeup make believe voice. And it's frustrating because she's trying to manipulate the situation. She really is. She's trying to manipulate. And that to me it pisses me off, quite frankly. Because I'm like, be who you really are. You're trying to say that these people over here all are wearing their mask every day, and this ain't who they really are. They're really all killers and drug dealers and da 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 da. Well, show your true face. You're a manipulator. You're a liar. You're doing it for the gram. So show who you really are too. Let's be 100% obvious and honest then. Let's keep it all the way 100. Let's keep it all the way funky. But she won't even admit when she's lying. She won't even admit when she didn't got caught up. But that is not at all what the DA intended to prove. Again, we'll still say when Adrian Bean, y'all kept saying he never even went to Grady. There was no evidence that was going to show that. But then he went in y'all bag of tricks and showed you he did go to Grady. You actually have two different written statements from a detective, one of which that was whited out and nobody can explain why. The officer that pulled Thug over in the car, he had one statement that was like written in red or whatever, it was printed in red, and another one, and they were completely different. It was a white officer, and he was an older gentleman. He was like, can you explain to me why your statements are completely different, your two statements? And he's like, I have no clue. Then he's like, well, did you ever go in and change it? And he's like, yeah, I may have went in there and altered it. Okay. April knows, baby. I don't trust prosecutors either. Like, again, I don't trust them. My trust in the police is very minimal. So you are who you display you are. If you display to me that you are lying, conniving, sneaky, unjust, non-spanks wearing ass individual, that's exactly who I'm going to think you are. So don't turn around and tell me it's sugar in this bowl when it's salt, because I'm going to look at you like you got crap on your face, because I know that you've been lying to me thus far, and I don't expect you to tell me the truth now. They knew, this is the thing, when they met with Antonio Sledge at the coffee shop, Starbucks or whatever, they could have then went over his statement, what he was going to say, what they were going to talk about, his plea agreement, and what was going to come into play then. They didn't. What did his attorney, Derek Wright, say? That they were just getting a feel for one another. What she wanted to make sure is that certain things weren't brought into the conversation as he testified. I think it effed both of them in the long run, because you heard Paige Whitaker say, I don't think putting an attorney on the stand worked out well for you at all. But it is what it is. And don't even get me started on Derek Wright, because he should have went into that probation revocation fucking hearing talking about Moontoong's family and how they got into the situation and the issues within the situation, and not so much about the plea deal that came 1 minute before they signed it that he didn't read. He should have put that responsibility back on himself, because he is free and Moontoong is not. Judge, this was me. This was my fault. I did not make sure my client was advised to the best of my abilities. I overlooked this. I did not do what I was supposed to do as his lawyer. That's why he ended up signing factual acknowledgments that were not true, because I didn't do my part. He had ineffective counsel. I wasn't all the way healthy. I was just coming back trying to help, but I ended up doing worse than what may have happened if he had a different lawyer. That was my fault. He should have 100% took full responsibility for that situation, because that was on him as his attorney. Moontoong didn't make it past the damn 10th grade. He didn't know he didn't know everything that was in that plea deal. He wasn't paying attention to it. But you know what? Neither was his attorney. And his attorney is supposed to be his backup for the backup. That's what he paid him for. He pays him to be his backup. And he couldn't even admit that he it up royally. And that says a lot about him. The Moontoong arrest was to scare all the other witnesses that was coming up. And some of them are still going to come, because they still have to present Shannon and Yak's case. But it's going to be a lot more concise, and I think it's going to end a lot more quickly, because they don't have their King Slime on there no more. And guess what? He ain't testifying against nobody. Ain't nobody that was on there before testifying against anybody. So now you just have your witnesses that was already on there. So, and you got countries united behind you guys. So I hope we make the most of this. Yeah, the representative. Oh my God, when she said I'm a representative of the victims. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're here to present evidence in representation of justice and truth. But you guys couldn't even be true and just you couldn't even present anything in a true and just nature. You manipulated from opening statements. Actually, you manipulated from the voir dire of the jury, but you kept it going. And should, Greasy Glanville still been on, you would have still been going. But you got Whitaker on there, and she's at least calling you out on your BS. I really feel like the mistrial day should have been the day with the phone number, for real. But that would have been prejudice. And they weren't going to let a mistrial with prejudice happen. So they was like, it was still going to come out about his investigation, and we could still do it in a different way. I'm waiting for the Lion Viverito testimony to come up next. I don't really know nothing, but I know everything. I mean, I got some thoughts about her, but you know what I'm saying. One of those probation officers that be like to her parolees, you know, if you know what that means. I'm your friend. I'm here for you. You can talk to me. I'm available 24/7 if you need me. Let me read some of your comments. Part of the acknowledgement was true, part was false. That's why he wanted to explain. It's true for both times. They asked him. Oh. All right, Nims, let's say I think they could. You know what? I just learned I could do that in this moment. I clicked on it and it popped over here. I didn't know that's how I got the comments to pop up, but I just figured that out. Thanks, Nim. I mean, you didn't even know you was helping your girl out, but you're helping your girl out. It says what? I think they could argue the play too. Part of the acknowledgement was true, part was false. That's why they explained. Yeah, agreed. He was under the impression he could come in and explain. And Paige basically said, nope, that ain't how that was supposed to work. You were just supposed to say, yep, all this was true, and that's the end of it. Kind of like how Tick and DK did. Yep, that's true. Even though the state wrote all of the factual acknowledgments. He didn't do a proffer. They just wrote them. So, you know. Yeah. Factual lie should have been a mistrial on day one. Absolutely should have been a mistrial on day one. Completely agree with that. Definitely should have. Here. Her soft voice. Here you go. Guys, I'm so excited. I just realized how to make the the comments pop up there. I'm like, wow, look at me learning. Yeah, I wouldn't trust love in personal life ever. If I seen it, I'm telling you, if I seen her out on the street, I would have to control and contain myself. I'd be like literally, I would stare her down so hard. I promise you. That woman made just she made I can't even say it. I cannot say it. She just gives me such You know, I got this thing when I get angry, my eye starts twitching, you know, a lot. And she just does something like it just makes my eye twitch just listening to her. My eye just start twitching like crazy. It's so frustrating. It is. It is. It is. But, you know, we're back at it on Monday. We'll be back in the courtroom. Doug has been posting a lot over the last week or so. You know, I also understand that, you know, people have been posting crazy stuff about, you know, Thug pleading out and, he can't talk crazy to Gunna no more. No, he can't talk crazy to Gunna no more because he took a plea too. You know, he didn't say YSL was a gang, but he took a gang charge. But also at the same time, you know, Gunna came home after a few months, or where was that? Yeah, when they did the whole plea deal thing. Gunna came home. Thug was still in there fighting it. You know what I'm saying? Now he knows what it looks like on the other end. He didn't think he was going to be in trial over a year. He thought maybe a few months. Yeah, and then this thing would be proven and we'd be done with it. But as it stands, he was still going to be in trial until January 2025 after being arrested in May of 2022. Like, he like, okay, if I got an opportunity to come home so I can get back to work, so I can start replenishing and rebuilding, making up for being away from my family, let me do my thing. I think, especially considering the fact that, you know, the hyper focus on Shannon's charges and Yak's charges. And somebody remind me, does Yak just got the RICO or does he have more than that? I can't remember. But I mean, they still gonna prove their case. Hopefully, it'll go a lot faster now because you just got 2 lawyers in the courtroom with that. But you know, they still got to work. It still work. Yak has murder. Is it only the murder for Donovan Thomas? The Yak has the Donovan Thomas thing, and then the RICO, right? Are those Yak's charges? Yeah. I mean, that's through Thanksgiving into December, and then they may get to start presenting before Christmas, but then they may not and just have to start after the new year. Because what? My finals are December 8th and the semester ends December 12th. I mean, I don't know how that works for court, but I'm just thinking about school. And then SB still has quite a few charges, the gang count. He has the Shamel drinks, the Donovan Thomas. He has some drug charges and some gun charges. Oh, yes, the conspiracy charge for the night with Duke. I thought he already served time on that. Cat just popped in to join me. Say, what's up, Cat? I don't know. I'm in my calm down mode. I got to hear Love's voice and just feel the burn and the stigma of how she completely sends me to the next level. But I don't know. I'm really hopeful. I'm really hopeful for these guys. I'm really hopeful that they get to come home too. And then everybody can just start doing something positive, learn from everything that has happened and move on with their life. I really do hope that. Kat, I just learned how to put my comments up here, so I'm so happy. I never knew. I always just read them out. I never knew or read them to myself. I really do hope. I really do hope that these gentlemen get a second chance at life again. Because it's one thing to do something. It's something totally different for the people who are just supposed to be proven the facts to try to manipulate everyone involved. They're trying to manipulate the jury. They're trying to manipulate the judge. They're trying to convince you that you did something. You know, you heard Keith Adams say it. Jeffrey Williams was not going to sign something that the state wanted him to say. They wanted him to agree to certain verbiage that they wrote for him as to the charges that they were willing to drop and charge him with. And that is, or drop, I say or, not in. But that's crazy. That's not okay. It's not justice. That's really not justice. And there's a difference between pleading guilty and being guilty. And sometimes we plead guilty because we see light at the end of that guilty tunnel. And that looks different than being guilty. But we get to celebrate and be happy for Jeffrey Williams and his family, Rod and his family, especially considering the fact that, you know, his case is going to be going up on appeal, hopefully sooner rather than later. And he doesn't have to worry about the other charges on the back end of any of that other stuff. And he just gets to maybe with luck and prayer, be able to come out of jail and do something productive with his life. Maybe go to school, get a trade skill, and be able to be a productive member of society. You got Carmavius Nichols and Marquavius Huey that get to go do their time for the things that they were involved in, and then come home and spend time with their kids and be a husband and a father and move on with their lives. You have Jeffrey Williams that gets to continue to make music and continue to be a productive member of society and move on with his life. I can't wait to hear what he's going to rap about now. I can't wait to see where he goes from here. But it's his journey to walk. It's his journey to go. And we are just spectators along that journey. This was a part of his journey. You know how they say sometimes you got to go through something to come out the other side, to be different and feel different. And this is what he gets to do. He gets to become something more than what he is and hopefully excel to the next level. Okay, yeah, because Controlled Substance Act, possession of a firearm by a felon, possession of a machine gun. Dang. Everybody just have a machine gun. You have a machine gun. You have a machine gun. You have a machine gun. Or was that the one found? Was that the one found in Jeffrey Williams' house? Did everybody have to take that, or was that just? It was a Glock with a switch. Okay. So everybody got charged with the guns that were found in Jeffrey Williams' house. Everybody had that charge. That's crazy. How does 4 people get this? Pin that on Duke Jack and Thug. Wow. 3 people charged with the same gun. I guess they was just sharing it, passing it back and forth. Like, no, you hold it. No, you hold it. No, you hold it. No, I'm going to hold it. We'll hold it. Ugh. I honestly believe once Duke took that, nobody else should have been able to be charged with that. But that's our justice system at its best. April O'Neil's baby daddy, I hear you. I hear you. I try to be non-biased. Listen to the facts, listen to the story, and then try to take that and decide. Sometimes we get in our own head and we start trying to piece together the story. I see how the state could do it. You get in your own head, you start piecing together the story. Even when they had Adrian Bean on the stand, I was like, okay. All right, he'll remember. Okay. And then you started listening to all the facts of the story. And you started hearing about all the interrogations and all of that. And then you're like, wait, what? With Archillian Bennett, you hear a story. Okay, I get it. Someone you was chilling with, smoking with, kicking with, whatever. They may have came back, broken in your house because you may have been a neighborhood lady. And, they come and they want some stuff. And, Walter Murphy said he was a drug addict during that time. And I see how that could happen. And you went and said what you said. And then you later decided, okay, I don't want to say that anymore. Okay, that makes sense. But then on top of that, you had, even if she was on the stand lying, when she was like, no. Even if, when she was saying to Love, you told me you was going to do XYZ and you lied. I kept telling you, I don't want to discuss this, that, and the third. But you did it. Like when she said, I don't want to discuss my mom. What happened? Love brings up her mom. A very tender subject. And so she's now on the stand crying because she was in jail when her mom got really sick and passed away. But that's how you hit the note to get what you want. I think Brian Steele, when the day that he argued that Love was testifying and prosecutors aren't supposed to do that, he got on saying he had a little yellow sticky note and he was talking about, I need them to turn over any Brady evidence regarding Archillian Bennett. And Love said, well, if you just want them to have our let's just say our pleasantries, that's all it is us, you know, how are you doing, how are your holidays, da 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 da, then yeah, we could turn that over. That's all it is. It's nothing more than that. And then the defense gets her phone, the text messages out of her phone, and it's a lot more than that. You got investigator Hamilton on his, what's up, mama? How you doing, mama? Let's get together. We're not gonna talk shop. You painted that situation as one way, but clearly it was something very different. It wasn't as innocent as you portrayed it to be. You know what I mean? You argue the court down about being not going to the hospital, but you then turn over records, the radio traffic that clearly shows him being taken over to Grady Detention, which is a part of Grady Hospital. I mean, it didn't take a rocket science to put that together. You put into evidence documents that clearly look altered, that have the same statement, but that have the same information, but then additives and subtractions from those statements. You have stuff looks as if it was whited out. You have the statement that was printed on one day in the police report reading one way, and then the statement that also is now in evidence reading a different way with different language put in there. You have people being arrested because an officer was following one of these people's YouTubes. I think it was Nichols, his Snapchat or something like that. And then you decided to get together and come and call in other officers and do a raid at that apartment complex, and he's literally arrested in a car that wasn't the car he was sitting in before, but there was a gun in the other car and he's sitting in a different car and drugs, and you're like, oh. But I understand why they would do that, because they literally charged 3 different people with the same gun that was found in a house that you said was under the bed that Duke was sleeping in, but because it was Jeffrey Williams' house, he got the charge too. Or was it his gun? Because you also argued that needed to come into evidence because it was found under the bed that Duke slept in. Again, crazy to me. Like, you argued that Donovan Thomas was, look, in Steele's words, God forbid, unalived, because Jeffrey Williams and Rich Homie Quan couldn't do everything. Jeffrey Williams and Brian Steele couldn't do everything that Brian Williams couldn't do everything that they need to do musically without Rich Homie Quan. But not that they would buy him out of his contract. Instead, because Donovan Thomas was promoting him staying within the TIG Studios label or the TIG label, that it was easier to take out Donovan Thomas instead of maybe the label owner who had the contract. But then you kind of like started to switch up your reasoning for the death. And at this point in time now, I don't even understand why Donovan Thomas was unalived. Like, I really, truly do not know what the state's theory is on why he was unalived. I don't. I understand that the defense's theory is because, you know, somebody with affiliation to both sides had a problem with family members of his that then they did stuff to him. So then there became an issue, and then there was a green light issued on that individual. And then that same person that the green light was issued on said, well, if I got a feeling that somebody going to do something to me, I'm going to do something to them first. And then next you have the Donovan Thomas unaliving. We have the theory of what? Somebody sending a kite in jail to Thug. We got them. Woo! Can I unalive this person? I mean, I don't know what else to say. You know what this case has proven to me? Anything can be manipulated. Anything can be lied about. Anything could be assumed, and that is reason enough to charge somebody with something. It is also proven to me that anytime that there are cell phones in jail, they're not there by mistake. Anytime someone of prosecutorial capacity, that includes probation officers, prosecutors, seem to be too friendly to you, seem to be too caring to you, it's because they have an agenda and an objective. They want something from you. It's not because they actually care about you. They want something from you. If you in jail and you come across a cell phone while you're in there, it is, let's just say 9 times out of 10 going to be tapped. Let's just say 9.9 times out of 10 it's going to be tapped. It is not getting in there. If you're in the prison system and there's a phone in there, it's 9 times out of 10 going to be tapped. So they're there for a reason. There's a reason why this 28-man indictment came down, and within a few months of everybody being arrested, they got phones. And then next thing you know, they sales are being raided. You know what I mean? Everybody who was in there on that indictment, individually, they sales end up raided at one point in time or another. It's because they were looking for stuff that they gave them the opportunity to get. We want these people on the phone talking, thinking nobody's going to hear what they're saying because they're leery of the jail phones, because we still need our information. There's a reason why the people that they put the wiretaps on are the people they put the wiretaps on. There are people that like to talk a lot. There's a reason why certain people's phones they extracted, you know? Sometimes the justice system is just, but it all, I think, depends on who is participating. There is a father-son duo. They have a YouTube channel. The dad, I think, used to be a prosecutor in Florida. And at one point in time, he was like a federal prosecutor. And the son is a defense attorney. I've only seen their stream a couple of times, so I'm not I don't really have a lot of the background to know. But just judging by like the dad and how he talks about the cases, and maybe even cases that, yes, lawyer, you know, the cases that has come before you, you can just kind of tell he was one of those prosecutors that went in with his ducks lined up in a row. He wasn't one of those people, one of those prosecutors that went in the courtroom and was just trying to wing it and be creative and throw a bunch of stuff at the jury and the judge and hope something sticks somewhere. Like, just the way that he gives like his open, honest, just unbiased, just real opinion. You can tell he was just like one of those people that was just on the up and up. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's just like, okay. I think Keith Adams, even within this YSL trial, he used to be a prosecutor. He gives a different perspective. I think he gives that this is what they're looking for. This is what they may go after. This is why he was able to call Love out on that phone number that she was trying to get from Sprinkle. He knew what she was doing. He knew exactly what she was doing. You know, I asked, the reason why I say that name is because Big T. So I did a live with my hubby a couple of days ago. And unfortunately, he's had some experiences with the justice system. And that's one of the things that I've always been like, hey, what's up with this? You know? And he's known people who's actually went into the prison system. And, you know, ages ago when he was young, it was younger, but, you know, that happened. He's in his 40s now, changed man. But he is the one that kind of brought that to my attention. He's like, there ain't no cell phones in jail or prison unless they want them to be there. They not just getting in there and somebody like, and yes, somebody may tell you like, yo, hey, I got this phone. You want to buy it? $100, $200, whatever, you know, because a cigarette goes for like $20-$30 in jail. In prison, it can get even more expensive. You know, it's about more than just them soups and stuff. But he's like, the phones that are there, they're there because they want them there. because they want to know what's going on. That's why you got the whole prison snitch things. They literally whole job that the show that they got about, undercover, the police officers that go into the jail to figure out what's going on. That stuff is real. You know what I'm saying? There are really, really, like lifetime criminals, for lack of a better word, that are literally, they ain't got nothing to lose anyway. They there for life. So why not tell what they know, tell what they see to get some extra privileges? You know what I mean? Like, they're okay with that, and they don't care how it comes across, because once they got you out the bunk or out the pod, then you go on about your business somewhere else, and they move on to the next person that they trying to get some information off of. And he's like, literally, it'd be the ones you would never think of. It'd be the ones that you know. Not for nothing, it'd be your ones that you be calling your everydays. They literally tell. I mean, the same things that's happening with like the YSL and the Dirk trial and all that stuff, like, the whole people snitching and friends snitching, that happens too within the prison system. Like, stuff happens there too. But yeah, the stuff that's there is there because they want it there. Love, I thought you meant the words to come on. Oh yeah, the phones get expensive. I mean, they got drugs in the prison system too, and that stuff gets expensive. I mean, there was, just as a side note, just to kind of attach that. So a long time ago, when I was younger, I used to smoke. And I used to buy my cigarettes by the carton, right? I smoked Newport 100s in a box. I had a little cousin that wanted to smoke too. And I would charge her $1 a cigarette. This is back when a pack of Newports were already like $3. It was more than 10 years ago. I would charge her $1 a cigarette. And it wasn't because I was trying to, honestly with her, it wasn't because I was trying to advocate her habit. It was because really I was trying to make her quit. I was trying to make it so uncomfortable for her to get cigarettes that she would eventually quit. So I would charge her $1 a pack or $1 a cigarette. After 5, she's like, I got enough to buy a pack. I said, well, it's not my fault you keep asking for a one-on-one basis, and there's 20 in the pack. So, yeah. And she asked me, could she buy a pack? I would charge her $10. Because if you got enough to buy my pack, you got enough to go to the store. So imagine what they charging in jail. Because that was me just every day out here on the streets. I had my own goal, What would be considered, one thing out here in the regular world is considered something totally different. You said, soups and stuff that you get in your commissary, that type of stuff would go for like $30. He's like the little Crayola markers that be like $1 in Walmart during the school year, or when they do the back to school, it's like $1, right? A pack of crayons, like a quarter, 35 cents. That type of stuff, there's 10, 20, $30 for those same items. So yeah, things get expensive, and the people that charge you, they want their money. And if they don't get their money, the money on their books, or they don't get the cash snuck into them, there's consequences for all that stuff. So a lot of what has happened and the way it has happened, it's been done in a way to kind of keep these people under a microscope. They talked about the Marquavius Huey situation with him being in an unrestricted area and all that stuff would happen, and his mom supposedly paying that guard or whatever. That was what, $1,500 of $17,000 that she received. Nobody talked about who was included or involved in that other 17,000. Nobody knows, because for them it didn't matter. What they wanted to talk about, they wanted to shine more light on another member of YSL involved in another crime today. See how guilty they are. See how guilty these people are. They keep doing it. Little Rod needs probably some behavioral health counseling. He probably needs some tutoring and education. He probably needs some some type of actual rehabilitation. I think his lawyer said it best. It would be nice if the resources that went into this trial could go to help people like him. Yeah. You can work when you're in prison. You can't work, I don't think, in jail. In jail, you can get like, so here where I am, they have like, they have certain levels wear different colors. But say for instance, you're in like, I think it was like green meant that you committed a crime with someone else. Orange is the color of the jail here where I live. Red meant that you were kind of like I forgot what they call it, but you were somebody that they could trust to like hand out meals, and you could be cleaning up in different areas or whatever. You kind of could like roam around the jail and do stuff. Like, I forgot what they called it, but it was kind of like you could, they trusted you enough to do stuff. Yeah, I don't know. That guard, they reportedly $17,000 is what she received from several different entities. I don't know. They didn't exactly explain if they all had something to do with that jail, but damn sure most of them, and she volunteered her phone to them as well. So, it was what it was. But I say that to say, it's a lot of manipulation that went into this trial. And I think Miss Abadi said it. It'd be nice if the resources that were used on this trial could have been used to help people. Most of the people in this trial had an education that was less than graduatory level. They did not graduate high school. Marquavius Huey, I think he did. But most of them, 8th grade education, 9th grade education, 10th grade education. That was it. Imagine if we were using our resources to keep these men in school, to give them secondary educations, to encourage them going to trade schools and colleges and doing something with their life, versus saying, you know what, you commit a crime, here's the prison system, we're going to throw you in it. Imagine what that could look like if we gave back. If we said, you know what, we want these people to do better, to be more. What about that? What about instead of trying to take all of those assets, they did say, yeah, you know what? Instead of trying to take all your assets, we do want you to do a concert here every year with at least 10,000 people and raise money. We do want you to just do the gun buyback. We'll accept that instead. We'll accept for the next 4 years you do the gun buyback program and dedicate $100,000 to that. We'll do that instead. Why not? Why not? We want you to encourage our youth to do well. You know what? We'll accept you contributing to rebuilding an after-school program like the Boys and Girls Club used to be, to help those kids that don't have anywhere to go. We'll accept you building or maybe dedicating your home to be like a shelter spot for those that are in need, that don't have housing, and put a bunch of bunk beds in there, section off those dadgum rooms, and make this a shelter. For kids from 0 to 18. We'll staff it and turn this into a nonprofit. Why not do something like that? And say, no, we want your assets. We just want to be able to use them however we want to use them. Yeah, I agree with you about the contraband. Most of the contraband that comes into the systems come in through the women. Again, I think I've shared with you before, I've had a situation when I was way younger, someone I dated that was in the system, and yeah, it was asked, hey, could you? And I'm like, no. Because if I get caught, nope. Then we both in there. Then what? No, not gonna do it. Women, yes, that's they boo, that's they love, that's they man, that's they person. Yeah, you a lot willing to go balls to the wall for somebody that you ride with and you care about. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to discount that. But, you know, for someone who's serving a certain amount of time, it is what it is. And not only that, you know, if you've never been in the prison system, you don't really understand how it works, but it's brutal. It definitely ain't sweet tarts and lollipops in there. It's brutal. You know what I'm saying? You get in there and you get to doing different stuff. You get in there and think somebody just offering you a drug or offering you a cigarette. And in reality, that's something you're going to have to pay back. Whether you want to or not, you're going to have to pay it back. And when they want their money, they want their money. And they will threaten and they will do whatever to get it. So, I mean, it gets, prison systems are dangerous, you know. Everything that can happen out here in the real world can happen in prison too. Oh. Shout out to Kat. I don't know if you're still in here. She sent me a Cash App. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. That's amazing. I didn't even expect that. I mean, I just put it up there because honestly, I just want to buy a different laptop that I can dedicate just to YouTube. But and I think it was Cadillac Law that says, you know, don't be afraid to ask. Your YouTube family becomes your family. So, you know, I'm not the type of person that usually be like, hey, help me out. They asking for handouts. I've been working since I was 13. I'm more than willing to do anything on my own. But, you know, she was always like, you know, we don't be afraid. So I was like, okay. And after asking my hubby, I was like, could I really? He's like, do it. See what happens. So thank you, God. I love you. I appreciate you. You're always supporting me. And I thank you for that because I'm very new to YouTube. I went off on the whim and said, I hate what's happening. I'm ranting about it. Let me share my anger with the world. And she has been so supportive of me and my mess talking. You said half is from Sapphire Ridge. Oh. Was there another one? Oh my goodness. There is Miss Sapphire Ridge. Kat sent the one on the behalf of Sapphire Ridge that says, keep creating. Thank you. Thank you guys for the support. I really do appreciate you. I really, really, really do. It's been amazing. It's been amazing to see like my growth and my learning. I even learned something new today. So I'm letting you guys meet me. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm special in my own way, though. I'm very opinionated, and I try to be outgoing, but I'm raw sometimes and a little uncut. And I just took a chance and said, hey, maybe somebody wants to listen to me. Maybe they don't. But either way, I get it off my chest. So that's what, for me, it was more about. It was about the venting and getting it off my chest. And this has been an interesting journey. And I plan to keep up with my journey. And hopefully I'll become, if I'm even 1/10 of the content creator that the people that I follow, especially Kat, not Williams, is, I will feel like I have accomplished something. So, you know, I'm going to keep striving. Again, I work 2 jobs. I got to work the second one tonight in a couple hours. And I go to school. I'm a mom of 4. So you may get all kind of crazy, awkward content from me. I wanted to do a whole rant about relationships because my girls are dating and it's driving me bonkers. But that's another subject for another day. But thank you, Factual Lie. I appreciate you so much. I have PayPal, so if you guys ever want me to put my PayPal in there, I can do that too. She says Cash App doesn't work in the UK. My Cash App, I don't even know if or my PayPal, I don't even know if I have what that looks like because I haven't been in there so long. But long time ago, I used to do hair reviews. So if you ever wanted to contribute, you absolutely can. I was looking at the monetization, and I have to have 500 subscribers, which I'm getting there. We creeping up. And then I think it's like 3,000 hours plus what was it? I was just looking at it the other day because I was like, hold on, let's see if I can change my phone. Monetization, from what I understand, once you get there, you're there, and it's cool. But what is it? Where was that? I was in my analytics, I think. I was looking at the YouTube analytics. There it is. So for my monetization, I have to have 500 subscribers. I have more than 3 uploads. And then it says 3,000 watch hours or 3 million shorts. I think I'll get the 3,000 watch hours way before. But yeah, so that's like the plan for that. And then code. Code. I don't know. I'm trying to look it up. My PayPal, anyways, is just under an email, which I think I can just post the email. I'll just post you guys what my email is. Here. I'll figure it out. If you don't have Cash App and you do have PayPal access, I don't honestly know about a lot of them. I think I had a Venmo, but I have to figure that one out too. But I don't know any of the other things. But if you ever want to, hey, thank you. Those of you that do contribute, I completely appreciate you. Thank you so very much. You're not obligated to. Do not feel obligated to. Do not feel like you have to. I thank you. My goal for right now is just to get a laptop that I can dedicate to YouTube so that I can save more stuff on, because my school laptop, the drive is quite full. So that's all that is. But I appreciate you guys so very much. I enjoyed spending time with you guys today. Thank you so much for coming in and ranting with me this Saturday. I'm going to be back next Saturday. Hopefully I don't have work next Saturday too. But I will be back next Saturday to go on our rant. I'll be back with Kat on Monday, streaming the YSL trial. I know she has meetings. Please hang out over there. Most of you are from there, so we'll be there anyways, in there chilling with each other. I'm back at my 9 to 5 on Monday, so I'll be there with my earbud in, trying to type when I can. Hopefully my patient's not getting mad at me, but it is what it is. But again, you guys, thank you so much for helping this channel grow. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like the video on the way in, you can like it on your way out. Share, tell a friend, bring a friend. And let's just continue ranting away. I thank you guys for all of your opinions and for helping me be better and just letting me know there's a community for me. So I wish work could go quickly, Kat. I'm there for 12 hours tonight. And I think time go back tonight. So no, it will not go quickly. It'll be long as heck. Oh, I forgot. I always end up working overnight the night that time goes up and when time goes back. So it's going to be super slow. It's going to be a night though. But you know, we'll do what we can do. But you guys, thank you all for sharing with me today, for being a part of the family. I appreciate you so very much. There is my email for my PayPal. If you are interested at all, you can just screenshot it. But thank you guys so much for being a part of the Mocha Is Me family, who is a part of the bigger umbrella of the Cat Not Williams family. So thank you guys, and I appreciate you again today. See you guys next time. See you next week. See you next week. Bye, guys.